American Sunrise Early Edition. Vlad the Instigator. President Trump lashes out at the Russian leader after a deadly drone strike on Kiev. And later he says the U.S. is now putting a lot of pressure on Moscow. California Governor Gavin Newsom watches the news. Maybe he even watches this program. You'd think that after he went out of his way to say his administration will be very cooperative with ICE after an illegal alien murderer is released early from a California prison. The war drums are beating louder and louder between India and Pakistan. It all started with a brutal terror attack on Indians visiting a site in the Kashmir region. And don't forget, both of these nations have nuclear weapons. George Soros' son Alex plays dumb, claiming he's angry that an environmentalist group his family foundation supports has somehow gone off the script by only protest against Israel. Nice try, Alex. You love it. And you didn't think the Democrats making child activist David Hogg vice chair of the DNC was anything more than window dressing, did you? Well, now even he knows the truth about all of that. American Sunrise Early Edition begins now.
Welcome to American Sunrise Early Edition. The show where faith, freedom, and the values that built this nation take center stage.
Your good deeds and bad deeds. That's how we're going to judge you.
Join host Jake Novak as he breaks down the stories that matter.
We will be letting the public know regularly what we have found.
American Sunrise Early Edition with your host, Jake Novak, starts now.
Welcome, everyone, to this No Tie Friday edition. You made it. You made it to the weekend here on American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. Thanks so much for joining me. A lot to get to this morning, so let's start right away with Daily Signal columnist Jarrett Stepman. And Jarrett, so much for President Trump never saying anything bad about Vladimir Putin. You know, that called him Putin's puppet. I mean, yesterday he really called him out. It's obvious the frustration from President Trump in regards to that latest attack earlier this week on Kiev. But, you know, this has also got to be followed up with some stronger either sanctions or threats. Maybe at some point, President Trump will make it very, very clear, as he is very good at doing, that, of course, the United States holds the ultimate Trump card, no pun intended. We can start undermining Russia's energy industry. As we've talked about before, Jarrett, these European countries that are bashing Russia every day are spending more money buying Russian fuel than they are giving to Ukraine. So maybe what's your prediction? Do you think that President Trump might threaten that in the next 48 hours or so?
Yeah, I certainly think he can. The idea that the United States doesn't hold a lot of cards here, I think, is ridiculous. And I think there is a lot of pressure even on Russia's proxies in the Middle East. I think in part that's what the attacks on the Houthis are about as well. I mean, these are Iran has been a proxy of Russia. They've been closely aligned together. So I think that the idea that Trump has just been a Putin puppet all this time is ridiculous. I do think that Trump does genuinely want to create a peace deal in this region. I think that he sees that as better for the long-term future of the United States. But, I mean, he really has a lot of uncooperative partners right now. He has Putin, who thinks he can win this war outright. He has Ukraine that still demands Crimea, which is at this point infeasible. And you have Europe that wants to continue the war. I think at some point, Trump is going to have to just simply set a future date at a ceasefire, demand a demilitarized zone, and maybe even walk away. I mean, that's what I think the United States maybe has to say in this negotiation to actually get something done. But I think Trump may actually start ramping up pressure here. I mean, this is about the art of the deal. It's about getting a peace deal, which is very difficult. These are countries that have engaged in war now for years. Both sides are not really willing to back down at this moment.
Yeah, and I think that it's the same. By the way, I felt it was similar with the threats to Hamas, just making repeated threats so that nobody can say that this administration didn't try to sue for peace, didn't try to give a nonviolent option a chance until certain things went down where it was just obvious there was going to be no cooperation from particular parties. I would say Hamas, Ukraine, Russia, they just want to keep fighting, and they don't deserve our support. And at some point, we do have to walk away. I think that's true. Jarrett, here's a headline with a message that I think you already knew. Gavin Newsom is running for president, and he's doing it by trying to look sane and moderate. He did that again yesterday, jumping at the chance to say, oh, yes, he will turn over that illegal alien who did a drunk driving homicide on 2 California teens, was only sentenced to 10 years in prison in the first place, is only serving a third of that sentence. He's getting out soon. I don't think any of this would have been mentioned in the newspapers by Gavin Newsom or anywhere else to the news media had it not been for shows like this program saying, hey, are you going to cooperate with ICE? Because ICE says they're going to grab this guy up the second he walks out of prison and deport him. Is this going to be enough for Gavin Newsom to erase years and years and years of open border policies and insane policies? I don't think so. How about you?
No, I don't. I think it's actually in a way that he cut this deal because it was a way to wash his hands of this issue. I mean, this particular individual had a very long rap sheet going back well over a decade before he committed some of those heinous crimes. So, I mean, this is a way for Newsom to try to, I mean, at least you could say that he's smarter than some of his Democrat colleagues on this issue. He knows that harboring somebody who's a dangerous criminal is problematic. A man who's gone through years of litigation and appeals showing that the problem with the process. But again, this is at the same time that California is trying to ramp up its war against ICE, its war against deportations. I mean, he's trying to now fund these departments that are going to resist the federal government. So this is Gavin Newsom taking on one side the most extreme case. He's letting ICE take this one guy away. At the other side, he's not changing the policies of the state of California, which remains a sanctuary state, which harbors people like this man who's a criminal who shouldn't be in the country to begin with. This is why we have immigration laws. California's been undermining that. I think it's very obvious to those paying attention.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how much traction he gets. I don't underestimate him as a candidate, or at least I didn't before the wildfires in L.A. I thought that as much as he had a terrible record in California, he was very tenacious. He had a better personality than most of the. I mean, look at these last few Democrat presidential candidates they've trotted out there with personalities that really were awful. So I thought that I didn't want to underestimate him, but if he keeps doing this sort of walking the fence thing, he's going to lose support among Democrats, and people like us are going to say, look, this guy is a complete phony. I mean, he needs to get a better staff there, I think. But one thing we do know, he's running for president, at least for now. Hey, Jarrett, here's an idea. Speaking of the Democrats, why don't the Democrats try something called democracy? It's in their name almost. DNC Vice Chair David Hogg. Now, this is this very recent college graduate. He became a national figure for some people. He wasn't. I wouldn't call him a national celebrity. But after that shooting at the Marjorie Stoneman High School in Florida, in Broward County, he became a national celebrity for a lot of liberals and anti-gun advocates. Then went on to Harvard, and they named him the DNC Vice Chair, somewhat surprisingly, just a few months ago. Well, this week, they told him that whole idea he has about supporting some people in primaries to try to get a more progressive left-wing electorate going, or a bunch of candidates going, that he can't do that, that he needs to sit on the sidelines. And I think this isn't about the neutrality. There's no such thing as neutrality in a DNC that has shoved 3 straight presidential candidates down the throats of their own voters with no real primary process. This is about the fact that he was there for window dressing. They do this, by the way, I think with AOC and even Bernie Sanders, too. They pretend that there's a progressive wing. They pretend that there's a young wing of the party. But at the end of the day, it's the Nancy Pelosi's and the Chuck Schumers who run this party. And David Hogg should just smile for the cameras and sit down. Isn't that really the deal?
Yeah, of course it is. And I mean, I think this is great. And I actually sort of agree with Hogg's approach to this. I mean, he knows that the party needs young blood. I mean, that the party's at a point, it's almost at its lowest point in the history of polling in its popularity. And, look, I don't like to agree with David Hogg on anything, but he probably has a point that the party needs fresh young blood at this point. I do think that there's a certain amount of justice in the fact that they clearly brought this person, as the Democrats often do. They're young activist wing. They like to support and promote until they start getting a little bit out of control. In this case, he directly challenged the power of those who run the party, and they don't like it, and they're going to try to make the problem disappear. But again, I actually have some sympathy for Hogg in this case. I mean, there is obviously a rising progressive wing of young people who don't support the party establishment. If they're smart about it, they will give some outlet to this. I don't think they can right now, again, which is why the party doesn't really have a message going forward, why I think that the party is struggling so much to regain popularity. So again, I sort of agree with Hogg's take here. I don't think that the party's going to let him continue these activities for any longer, though.
Yeah, I mean, we see these polls that show young people, especially young men, the age of David Hogg, who are overwhelmingly now turning towards the Republicans, and I would say more specifically towards supporting Donald Trump and his administration. They should be afraid of this. They should be using him for more than window dressing. Again, Jared, I don't know if I've ever rolled out this alter ego for myself with you on this segment, but I do this on the program a lot. I have an alter ego superhero called Jake Novak, unemployable political consultant, because I give good advice. And apparently, if you give good advice in the political consulting firm, you have no career. Honestly, the good advice to give to the Democratic Party here is, work with David Hogg. See what you can do with it, because you've got a young person, especially a young male problem, and this is how they do it. They wouldn't listen to my advice, and that's why I am Jake Novak, unelectable political consultant. All right, Jared, you have a new piece out in the Daily Signal about where American voters stand in the battle between President Trump and the administration and schools like Harvard. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I thought that the poll was extremely interesting because, of course, the way the media portrays it, this is Harvard being attacked by an authoritarian president who's impeding on their free speech and all these terrible things. But it's very clear that Americans are not particularly sympathetic to Harvard or elite universities with billion-dollar-plus endowments. In the case of Harvard, a $53 billion endowment, continuing to get federal money. I mean, this is the big issue in this whole dust-up. Trump has threatened to essentially remove funding from the school, federal funds, and it's very clear that in this poll that Americans think that we shouldn't be funding student loans to go into schools that have these billion-dollar endowments. Harvard has enough money for about $7 million for each student. Why should the average American taxpayer pay for this? And I thought it was interesting that Americans are actually highly supportive of taking that next step, which is taxing the endowments of these schools. Why should these schools essentially be hedge funds with a school attached to them? I think that that's a ridiculous situation. Again, this is all underwritten by the taxpayer. And I think it's at this point, especially given the partisan nature of a lot of these campuses. I mean, Harvard, a poll that was taken in 2022, had less than 2% of the faculty that identified as conservative. I mean, that's not balanced. It's obviously they're not creating a culture of free speech that reflects the people of the United States. Why should the United States, why should Americans as a whole continue to give financial support to these institutions that obviously just don't need the money? They don't need the money, whereas a lot of Americans do. So I do think that the tide has turned very strongly against higher education, especially these elite schools. And I think that there's a moment for Trump to seize a hold of at this point where we need to withdraw public support and money from these schools that have acted badly, have allowed anti-Semitism, have no interest in it, in creating any kind of ideological diversity on their campus. And enough is enough. And I think Trump understood that.
Yeah. And if you want to take a look at an alternative to all of this, check out on X, the X feed for Hillsdale College. The president there has been posting regularly the differences between his school and Harvard. Hillsdale doesn't take federal funding. By the way, they were still forced to do some stuff by the federal government, even though they don't take federal funding. But he talks about all the things that Harvard is doing wrong from a perspective of another university president. It's very interesting. Jared Stettman, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Jake.
All right, coming up, the Indian Navy is in position as tensions between India and Pakistan are rising. A full-blown war between these two nations seems closer than it's been in decades, and they both have nukes. Uh-oh. And the Soros Foundation has been funding anti-Israel mayhem in America for years. So why is Alex Soros acting like he's upset about that all of a sudden? I'm not buying it, neither should you. American Sunrise Early Edition is coming right back. As a live look at Vatican City, again, more of the faithful and well-wishers paying their final respects to Pope Francis. The funeral is tomorrow, and you can expect next week we're going to be waiting to see the choice for the new Pope. The last few choices, the conclaves, haven't taken that long, been 2 days or so. So we really, this time next week, I really expect there to be a new Pope, but that's my prediction. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. It's a No Tie Friday. Special welcome to those of you on Getter and Rumble who are already commenting. Again, this is not a passive news program. That's in the 1970s. We were all gathered around in the living room to watch the news and let them hypnotize us for a half hour. That's not how it works anymore. Love to hear your comments. All right, this terror attack I'm about to show you some video of on Indian tourists in Kashmir on Tuesday left dozens dead. It was a brutal terrorist attack by Islamist terrorists. India immediately blamed the attack on Pakistan, saying that Pakistan either planned it or at least allowed it to happen. And since then, things have been ratcheting up between these two nuclear-armed countries. India ordered all Pakistani nationals out of the country, canceled visas. There were water treaties that were put on hold. The Indian Navy has now been deployed. This is a very serious situation, again, not only because they're two nuclear-powered countries, but because they've basically been at war since day one, since the partition plan created two countries, India and Pakistan, in 1947. They've just been they've just ebbed and flowed in their war. They really haven't decided how to live together, or at least as neighbors in that part of the world. Certainly hope that this doesn't get further out of hand, but you can see how this is going to happen. As long as terrorism is being used as some kind of political tool against your enemies, you can expect wars to come from it. All right, back here in America, we're nearing the first 100-day mark for the second term of President Donald Trump. And the White House has confirmed it will be holding a rally to celebrate the first 100 days in Michigan, in that crucial state. Jack Posobiec has a good point about how a celebration now kind of takes the place of that canceled inauguration outdoor celebration that was supposed to happen back in January. Listen.
And in fact, I'm pleased to announce and to have heard the president and his team announce last night that they have decided they will, in fact, be holding a massive public rally to celebrate 100 days up in Michigan. I think this is great. I think the fact that the inauguration was itself canceled for President Trump. He wasn't able to have the parade. He wasn't able to celebrate the victory. I think it's big, and I think it's important. I hope that there is, in fact, a lot of pomp and circumstance at this rally. I hope that they add some more of those elements so that it's not just a traditional political rally for President Trump, but also a moment for the country and everyone to understand that this country has been changed, has been shaped, and has been shifted because of the events of 2024, but even writ large, the events of the last 100 days.
Human Events with Jack Posobiec airs every Monday through Friday here on Real America's Voice at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, David Hogg is young, so you can understand it if he was a little bit naive. This is a story we talked about just a little bit more. I want to give you a little bit more detail about this. The DNC has surely made reality clear to him now. Now, Hogg, in the last few days after he was appointed the vice chair of the DNC, even though he was very young, just graduated college, had decided that he was going to openly support some primary candidates, particularly some progressives, obviously some candidates who were more anti-gun. And the DNC reminded him that the official rules of the DNC is that they don't say anything publicly about primary candidates. Of course, privately, the DNC does things like tell primary candidates they don't like to sit down and be quiet. That's how you got Hillary, and that's how you got Joe Biden, and that's how people like Bernie Sanders never really had a real shot to win the presidential nomination. Not that we love Bernie Sanders, but democracy is democracy. These are the people lecturing us about democracy in America. Just incredible. Those are the details of that story in case you missed it in our first segment. Now, Alex Soros, he's George Soros' son. And for those of you who know how things are going in that family, Alex is really basically running the foundation right now, even though George is still alive. Now, he and his family, despite the fact that they are Jewish, have been incredible enemies of the state of Israel for decades. Horrific enemies, so much so that they support many of those, by the way, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic riots on campuses across the country. But he said something interesting yesterday. Now, the Soros Foundation has forked over hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years to something called the Sunrise Movement. It's supposed to be an environmental group, and Alex Soros, in an interview with New York Magazine this week, said, what the heck is going on with all the anti-Israel protests by this environmental group that I give all this money to? Folks, this is a front. The Soros Foundation hates Israel, hates traditional Jews. That's just the facts. There's a lot to back me up on this. I don't have enough hours in the day to go through it, and it actually would make me nauseous. The idea that he has a problem with any of the groups that he funds being anti-Israel is a lie. Maybe he's pulling a Gavin Newsom and also trying to appear more moderate and sane. Listen, I'd like them to actually be more moderate and sane, but if they're just going to give lip service to it, no thanks. Okay, tariffs have thrown the global economy into chaos. Potential widespread inflation tied to massive supply chain disruptions is weighing heavily on all of us, but there is a silver lining that most people missed. President Trump specifically exempted gold and silver bullion from these sweeping tariffs. While these new policies are triggering significant financial chaos, the administration preserved your ability to diversify into precious metals. If you are concerned about your savings, I encourage you to have a free consultation with a Birch Gold precious metals specialist. The first step is to text America to 989898 and receive your free, no obligation info kit on gold. Learn how to hold gold and silver in a tax-sheltered account. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a gold IRA for no money out of pocket. I buy my gold from Birch Gold. Is it finally time you did too? With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of thankful customers, text America to the number 989898. Again, text America to 989898 to claim your free info kit right now. All right, the Chamber of Commerce snobs keep telling us that we need open borders to fill low-level service jobs in America. But don't they remember that a time when American teenagers used to actually work in this country? One governor does. That story is coming up when American Sunrise Early Edition continues. Live shot of the White House there in Washington, D.C. You know what I don't see in that picture? I don't see an American flag. We were talking about that yesterday. President Trump is going to use his own money to build a giant American flag on a big flagpole. I think 2 of them on that White House lawn. So one day we'll be able to see a big American flag there. Don't see it in the whole picture. I don't see one. Unbelievable. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. Let's take a look at where the markets are going to begin today. We're on a 3-day strong winning streak for the stock market. Looks like we're going to open lower. This was the way it looked yesterday, by the way. It looked like we were going to open even lower than this. And of course, we ended up with a nice rally again. Gold is down a little bit. Again, $3,300 an ounce. It's just so close to that all-time high. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. See if it's staying above that ceiling of 88,000. Yeah, it's at 94,000. Bitcoin is up. So making that slow march again back to 100,000. That's interesting. Again, remember, we were stuck between 80,000 and 88,000 for Bitcoin for weeks and weeks and weeks. We broke out of it a couple of days ago, and it's still going up. So another reason why the markets rallied yesterday, again, we're on a 3-day winning streak, but yesterday they had a specific reason, a big reason for rallying. And their reason was because the big investments in all that AI technology seemed to get a little bit more justification. I was trying to explain this on this program for a couple of weeks now. Yes, the tariffs are the biggest reason why we had that sell-off in the markets. By the way, we've recovered more than half of what we lost from that sell-off, by the way, just in these last few days. But that was the biggest reason. But the other reason why is that a huge number of these huge big investors, rich brokerage firms, had put massive amounts of money into AI technology. And just a couple of months ago, China rolled out a much cheaper version of it all and panicked almost every tech investor in the world, especially those here in America, thinking maybe they overspent. But yesterday, Amazon and Google made a statement about how the demand for their AI processing centers isn't dissipating at all. It's going crazy. And that was why, by the way, I'm showing you video right now of 2001: A Space Odyssey and the Terminator. Now, here's my problem, folks. Every time I talk about AI, there's really no interesting video to show. I mean, I guess I could show you some of those machines that make the computer chips that make AI technology, but that's really boring. So I'm going to show you a video from 2001 where the computer with AI went rogue. And here's some video from the Terminator where Arnold Schwarzenegger as a Terminator goes rogue. Because honestly, that's all I can do to show you. This is a very big problem for TV. The reason why you're not getting good reporting on AI is because there's not enough good video to show. So here you go. All right. Okay, yesterday I might have been too optimistic when I was talking about the housing market in America. I was telling you about the new home sales, brand new home construction sales surging in March. They went up more than 7% in March. And I was telling you, hey, that's a really good and encouraging sign. But of course, the bigger part of the market are existing homes, the homes that people already live in and they sell to someone else. That dropped in March to a low level we haven't seen since last September. That's a little bit troubling. I still want to be optimistic. I like the fact that people are buying new homes at a higher clip. But we got to get these mortgage rates down right now. I think that once you see a mortgage rate anywhere below 6%, even if it's 5.999, I think people will be a lot happier. But right now, we're still well above 6.5%. We got to get that lower. Okay. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is working to change laws in his state, Florida, to make it easier for teens to work in the state, work at places like some resorts and other places like that, where they really have strict restrictions on teen workers. Of course, that's one of the biggest reasons why a number of parts of this country take in and look the other way at illegal immigrants, at jobs that a lot of young people in America used to have. You're forgetting about how there are still a lot of teens in this country who have time and would get a better education sometimes than they get in school by going to work. Of course, we still want them to go to school, don't get me wrong, but earning their own money either for college or to get a car or to go to the mall or whatever they want to do, or shop on Amazon. This is a good part of a child's education in this country, and not as many teens are working as there were when I was a kid. That's a huge problem, and of course, it has encouraged illegal immigration. These Chamber of Commerce Republican types and rich corporate types, rich liberal types, they don't want to see their precious teenage kids working. But what about the rest of us, where we want to have our kids learn a little bit about the value of a dollar? I like what Governor DeSantis is doing. He's not alone. There's a few other governors doing this as well. Okay, Eli Lilly isn't messing around. The pharma giant sued a bunch of telehealth operators earlier this week because those telehealth operators are allegedly selling bastardized versions, compound versions of Eli Lilly's weight loss injectable drugs. If you know anything about the American pharma industry right now and the stock market, you know that weight loss drugs are all the rage. Other than AI, this is the biggest obsession of the markets right now, certainly the biggest obsession of pharma. And Eli Lilly doesn't like these telehealth providers selling watered-down versions of their drugs, basically hurting their brand. And I got to tell you something, Eli Lilly's lawyers are definitely better paid than what these telehealth groups are going to have. Eli Lilly's going to win a settlement here, if not at least win in court. And remember, this is the same Eli Lilly that has been successfully testing a pill that you can take to get the same results of those injectable drugs. I'm not a fan of them, but you got to admit, a pill instead of pricking yourself once a day, that's going to be a huge winner. So Eli Lilly's about to get even more money to sue these guys. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Start your engines. Moving America, sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. ArtilleryTeaCo.com. Use promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. ArtilleryTeaCo.com, promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Okay, Ford is boasting of a major breakthrough in its battery technology that will give the company a big edge in the EV wars. The specifics, yeah, not so much. They didn't really give us the specifics, but Ford is saying that this breakthrough will allow it to offer lower priced EVs that can travel farther on a single charge thanks to new battery cell chemistry. Hey, good job, Ford, I guess. But remember, as I say on this program all the time, Ford and GM, your bread and butter are trucks and SUVs that are gas powered. There's never been a time in the history of GM and Ford where they've been very, very successful without trucks and SUVs to really, really lead their products. That's what people want out of these companies. So tread lightly on the whole EV stuff, Ford. And now for some reality on electric vehicles. Nissan is scrapping plans to make 2 new EV sedans here in the U.S. One would have been for the Nissan brand and the other for its Infinity luxury label. Now, this is being interpreted by the traditional media as another sign of just how weak Nissan is. Now, of course, Nissan is in some dire financial straits, that's for sure. But actually, I think this is an amazing move. It's actually not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of them being a little bit more bold. They know that the EV fad is already on the wane. It's time for them to focus on other things. More specifically, Nissan has some factories here in the United States where they'll be able to avoid some of the tariff pain. And not only for their vehicles, but they could actually also outsource some of it and allow some other companies to use some of their factory space. I think Nissan has a good future, especially since they're going to get away from EVs a little bit. That's a smart move. Okay, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has announced that the Trump administration is removing a number of regulations that currently make it harder for U.S. automakers to either make self-driving cars or make them and also get them on the road in certain cities and states. Now, this is about beating China to the punch on this. There's a lot of demand for self-driving robo-taxis and the whole deal. Now, before a lot of you bang on the table and say you don't want robo-taxis and you hate them and you don't think this is a good move, again, I remind you, talk to someone who has a severe disability in this country. Talk to people who are basically shut-ins and can't get anywhere from their home because of the fact that they can't drive safely. And yes, there are a bunch of buses and vans that a lot of cities and towns offer for people with disabilities. Ask anyone about that. They're unreliable. They don't come regularly. They cost extra money sometimes. Robo-taxis and self-driving cars for people who can at least see and make sure that the car is somewhat operated responsibly is an absolutely liberating factor for probably millions of Americans. So before you throw that in the garbage can and say you don't like it, think about your neighbors who can't get from point A to point B. I think this is a great liberating factor for them. I'm all for it. All right, coming up, with the Department of Education in D.C. basically being dismantled, the states and local towns all across America will be able to control their dollars much more when it comes to education. We're going to talk to one state schools chief about what he's going to do with that newfound freedom. And the ugliness and mayhem at so many so-called elite colleges in America are providing a lot of other schools a chance to make their pitch for our nation's best and sanest students. But what will that pitch sound like? How will they get them to choose some other school besides Harvard or Columbia? More on that when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. It's Friday, April 25th. Here are some of today's top stories. Vlad the Instigator. President Trump lashes out at the Russian leader after a deadly drone strike on Kiev. And later, President Trump says the U.S. is now putting a lot of new pressure on Moscow. California Governor Gavin Newsom watches the news. Maybe he even watches this program, because you'd think that after he went out of his way to do it a little bit of an about face and say his administration will be very cooperative with ICE after an illegal alien murderer is released early from a California prison. The war drums are beating louder and louder between India and Pakistan. It all started with the brutal terror attack on Indians visiting a site in the Kashmir region. And don't forget, both of these nations have nuclear weapons. Oi. And you didn't think the Democrats making child activist David Hogg vice chair of the DNC was anything more than window dressing, did you? Well, now even he knows the truth about all of that. American Sunrise Early Edition begins now. Well, we're not beginning here on American Sunrise Early Edition. Surely you've been watching the first half hour of this program. We're continuing, but for those of you who are joining in now, I guess we are beginning. This is No Tie Friday. Welcome back. I'm Jake Novak, and joining me now is Oklahoma Schools Chief Ryan Walters, frequent guest on this program, and we haven't seen in a couple weeks. I'm really glad you're rejoining us. Listen, Ryan, you get a lot of attention in the national news media. So before I get to the national news stories that aren't Ryan Walters related, I want to get to a couple that are related to you. The mainstream media folks don't like the fact that you're doing something sane, like trying to find out the immigration status of not only the students in Oklahoma's public schools, but their parents too, for a number of reasons. Can you explain why this is sanity? I mean, I know this is like saying 2 + 2 = 4, but for those who need a little bit of music for the choir, please explain to us why you need to do this.
No, thank you for that. You know, we've got to come back to common sense immigration policies. President Trump has laid out the course here. It's very clear. Our taxpayers need to know how much money is being spent on illegal immigrants. We need to know how much our schools are spending to educate the children of illegal immigrants. We need to understand how much it's costing taxpayers, the burden it is to schools. We also need to be able to comply with President Trump's executive orders to make sure that we know how much funding is going towards illegal immigration. And so, you know, I think it's very common sense. The media, the national media, they hate it. They reject anything that actually enforces a secure border. And then, you know, we've got left-wing activists that continue to come and protest this. And, you know, how dare you ask for immigration status? I'm going, I mean, guys, a birth certificate, driver's license, these are things that you get asked about all the time. And by the way, when you enroll your kids in school, I mean, I literally just enrolled my kids a few months ago in our local public school. I mean, you have to tell where you live. You have to tell if you bought your home, what your mortgage is, all this information. But they don't want you to ask them for a birth certificate, driver's license, you know, if you're in the country legally. I mean, it's really absurd. It's very common sense. We're going to continue to enforce President Trump's immigration policy in Oklahoma schools.
Yeah, as the great Milton Friedman, the Nobel Prize winning economist, said, you can have either open borders or you can have a welfare state, but you can't have both. If you're going to have a very generous state that provides public education and so many other things to society, I can hear a lot of great arguments about that. I'd rather have it be a little bit more capitalist, but I get it. I think there's some real positives to that. But then you can't also have open borders so that non-taxpayers are participating in it. This is very, very logical. Here's another thing that's logical. We don't want to have our schools politicized. So, Ryan, you've also got a policy to defund schools, insisting on clinging to DEI programs and curricula. What's that all about, Ryan?
Yeah, listen, we should be about academics. We should be about ensuring kids understand the basics. We need to be about understanding that kids understand American history. We don't need to be forcing and shoving left-wing indoctrination on our kids, diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm telling you that we have seen white privilege walks. We have seen critical race theory. This DEI stuff is absolutely nonsense. President Trump has an executive order out, and we said we're going to be the first state to comply. And by the way, I can announce this here today. Every single district has now complied. Every district has sent a letter back to us and the Trump administration here in Oklahoma saying no DEI in our district. We confirm that. No DEI policies. We're the first state to do that. We're so thrilled. We're going to be talking about that more later today. So I'm excited to announce that here. It's not happening in Oklahoma. We have eliminated DEI completely from our schools.
So you're out front on that. Let's take a step back for a second. I want to call time out for just 1 second, because as you know, the Department of Education, as we know it, is being, I can say the word dismantled. I would say it's just being unshackled. But we've talked now just in my previous two questions about things that you're not doing. But I'd like to know, you and states like Oklahoma and towns as well have an absolutely newfound freedom that they didn't have before this Linda McMahon era right now at the Department of Education. What would you say are some of the things that you're really excited that you now have freedom to do that maybe you didn't have under the Biden and Obama regimes?
It's absolutely incredible. We have already seen them cut through so much red tape. Already tell us, hey, listen, when you get a math grant, spend it on math. When you get these dollars, go spend them on the areas that you receive them in. So Linda McMahon's already done a great job of coming in and cutting that. And now, what we've been working with her administration, we have submitted the largest waiver of any state in the country to say, listen, we want to waive all these federal regulations. We want to have, full autonomy over our education dollars to sit here and say, hey, how do we test kids? How do we make sure kids are ready for workforce? We want to be able to do that with our Oklahoma expectations there. Hey, when we take in money for special ed, we don't want to have to jump through all these hoops. You know what ends up happening with all these hoops? You have a lot more bureaucracy. We want to pay our special ed teachers more. We want to direct more of those funds to parents through school choice and say, we want you to make the decision on what this looks like for your kid, not to fill out hundreds of pages of paperwork for the federal Department of Education. And again, remember, with all the paperwork they require, they're creating jobs for bureaucrats in D.C., and they're forcing states to hire bureaucrats to comply with these federal orders. So we have asked the federal Department of Education, we want waivers on those things. We'll show you how we spend the money, but let's not pay bureaucrats. Let's not grow bureaucracy. Let's get the money to parents directly. Let's get the money to students. Let's get the money to teachers. And we've been working with them on that. We are going to have some amazing programs now that are going to be all about catching kids back up, merit pay, school choice, because of the efforts of President Donald Trump and Linda McMahon.
Yeah, I'm calling this almost like an education enterprise zone. I think we're going to see some states and some even smaller localities coming up with some real innovative new education ideas because of the freedom they're going to have. I'm close with a number of education innovators here in New York who are very excited about this, who have policies like no politics and no gossip in the schools, no desks, an hour-long recess, learning science and social studies at the same time so that they can, some of these great ideas that you can't have under the rigid old system. All right, Ryan, now listen, you also oversee the universities in Oklahoma. So it isn't just K through 12 education that we're talking about when we bring you on this program. And as you know, we've had some terrible ugliness at the so-called elite schools, the Harvards, the Columbias, the Penns. I could go on down the line. Now, a couple of weeks ago on this program, I had someone from Palantir Tech talk about how some of these kids who are good enough to get into these schools don't even have to go to school anymore. They can go and work for a company like Palantir in their special program they have. But before we take that drastic step, how about some of these kids thinking about a school like OU or Oklahoma State or some of the other great institutions in your state? I'm going to give you a chance now to make a free pitch to the smart and sane, the ones who aren't participating in the craziness, the students at Harvard and Columbia and all those other kinds of schools, to maybe consider what you have in the Sooner State. What do you got for us?
Here's what I got for you. So here in Oklahoma, we've got Oklahoma University, we have OSU, Oklahoma State University, go Pokes. We've got universities that actually go and focus on your education. Their job is to try to get you ready for the career. You're not going to see this nonsense. We do not allow it. This anti-Semitism, this hatred for America, is not going to happen here. And so, what you continue to see is we're seeing record enrollments in our universities because they come here. First of all, they love Oklahoma because we're a conservative state that hasn't lost our ever-loving mind like some of these blue states. And number two, again, our universities, we continue to put the focus on, hey, we want kids to come and be prepared. We want to keep costs down. We want to make sure that what they're able to do is get a great education so that they can go make career decisions. We're not trying to warp their minds into turning them into some anti-American communist. We want to build up your knowledge, your understanding, so that you can go out there and get that type of job that your God-given talents allow you to. And we're unapologetic about that. We love God here. We love our country here, and we're going to continue to promote that. And frankly, I think you're going to see enrollment in universities like ours continue to boom. So come on to Oklahoma.
Oh, Ryan Walters, you are far more politically correct than I am. One of the first things I would have said in your position was that the let's put it this way. The students are a little bit more presentable looking in Norman and Stillwater. Let's put it that way. And by the way, that's not a sexist comment. I mean that about the men and the female students at those schools. But you'll let me say that. Ryan Walters is the Oklahoma schools chief. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thank you for having me. Have a good one.
Okay. Let's be honest. We're not getting any younger. And if you want to look and feel your best, you need to check out Pure Health Research. They have 45 premium health supplements designed to help with every health goal, whether it's boosting your energy, trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone up, or even reducing swelling in your legs. Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients, backed by clinical research and manufactured right here in the USA. And here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use coupon code EARLY at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's zero risk in trying something new. So why wait? Head over to purehealthresearch.com now, explore their 45 amazing supplements, and save 35% before this deal ends with coupon code EARLY. Don't miss this chance to feel your best. Okay, coming up, just when you thought New York Senator and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer couldn't go any lower, he does just that. David Brody and I will call him out again when American Sunrise Early Edition continues. Beautiful shot of live downtown Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. A beautiful part of the country. If you've never been there. Not far from there is a beautiful school, by the way, Lehigh University, not far from there either. And that is also a gorgeous campus. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. It is No Tie Friday. And no, we were not able to convince David Brody to go for the No Tie Friday. He may not be wearing socks or underwear, but he is wearing a tie. One day we'll get him, but that's okay. Hey, listen, what isn't okay, David, is Senator Chuck Schumer, who continues to hit new lows week after week, and this one really has my blood boiling. He literally got up with a bunch of other senators and told Donald Trump to stop trying to crack down on anti-Semitism on the campus, saying that's not really what he cares about. He only cares about something else. This is the same Chuck Schumer who it's documented, and not the right-wing press, but a liberal media outlet documented this a few months ago, the same Chuck Schumer who told Harvard and Columbia back in 2023 not to do anything about their anti-Semitism on campus because, quote, only Republicans care about this issue. This is a despicable person. I'm ashamed to say he sat next to me on the dais at my high school graduation. That wasn't my choice, but I had to sit next to him. This is an absolute low point for him as a human being. I'm really going to say that right now because there are students who are really suffering on these campuses, and he's looking a gift horse in the mouth in a huge way.
Well, Jake, back to you. What else can be said? You're right, 100%. Look, here's the thing. Schumer wrote a book called Anti-Semitism in America, a warning is what he said. And he was like, oh my gosh, since October 7th, the overt racism in America, anti-Semitism in America has just gone wild. Look at the small business owner who's Jewish, who X, Y. He would just go through all these overt incidents and say, we've got to stop this. This is horrible. Okay, hold on. You want to talk about overt anti-Semitism? Maybe you should look at Harvard and Columbia and all these other places. That's where overt anti-Semitism, excuse me, I'm getting all riled up. I can't even say my words. Anti-Semitism is going on with these professors and so many more than just the professors. The point is that he has no moral clarity. And I know I haven't shocked you by saying that, but there's no consistent moral clarity at all. How can you be against overt acts of anti-Semitism and then allow Harvard and Columbia to do what they're doing? Well, we know the answer, right? I mean, the answer is the small business owner has nothing to do with his agenda, but the Harvard and Columbia and all of those elite institutions fit perfectly into his agenda, which has to do with secularism, liberalism, cultural Marxism. It all works together, and that is despicable. The fact that he has no moral clarity on that is despicable. And by the way, we got Evangelical Speaker Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, showing up there at Columbia, and Chuck Schumer's nowhere to be found and making the exact opposite arguments. I mean, Jake, this tells you why true Bible-believing evangelicals are the best friend of not just Israel, but Jewish people in America.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who I've grown up with, both traditional and secular Jews, who don't understand that. Just because we disagree about what's going to happen in the end of days, that's the great thing. It's going to happen in the end of days. We can table this discussion and debate until then, and then when the person who's right at the end will concede defeat too. Really, honestly, it's a joke. And it's one of the things that very despicable people like Chuck Schumer use to drive a wedge between us and their political enemies.
Quickly, just remember, as you know, Old Testament, New Testament, it's linked. It's all part of the Bible. And that is why, that's a big reason why. But we can talk about it another time. We got to go.
All right. Have a great weekend, David. American Sunrise coming up next.
American Sunrise is a great way to start your morning. Join us Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got the news of the day and some compelling interviews that you don't want to miss. Here's what you missed from yesterday. Hey guys, look, I've been keeping an eye on the White House. The executive order flurry continues. Of course, yesterday, President Trump signing another executive order on education. Basically, the focus is to reel in woke universities and schools. He wants more oversight over that. But this morning, guys, one of the stories that caught our eye had to do with this $5,000 baby bonus that's being proposed right now for new moms. It's basically a bid to reverse declining birth rates.
It is such a big decision to have a baby. It is just not something that I want people doing with any incentive other than God leading them.
Gina, you are the voice of reason on this. I actually do agree with you. There should be no financial incentive, to have a child.
Trump says that 145% tariffs are very high, very, very high. And they won't remain that high, but they added that they won't be at zero.
Are you talking to them actively now?
Actively. Everything's active. Everybody wants to be a part of what we're doing. They know that they can't get away with it any longer, but they're still going to do fine. And we're going to have a country that you can be proud of, not a laughing stock all over the world for.
I think we should go 400% on China. That's my opinion. This is a type of economic war for the ages. This is going to set the bar 30, 40, 50 years from now. Our grandkids are having jobs that were created in this country because of this tariff and this standoff with China, bringing production back to this country. So what President Trump said in that sound earlier is spot on.
The Justice Department has announced a slew of charges against 27 alleged current or former Tren de Aragua members. Can I just say TDA? It would help me. Attorney General Pam Bondi released a statement saying the arrests span 3 states and will devastate TDA's, infrastructure.
History tells us that RICO was actually designed to go after gangs. RICO's designed to go after, original gangs being the mobs and how they fund themselves and how they hide themselves. And it really allows guilt by association.
And when it comes to immigration, Rav's own Ben Bergquam, of course, recently had the chance to tag along for ICE operations in Chicago and New York and Baltimore.
Watch this episode. We're going after these guys, rapists. We find out rapists, murderers. We find out one of the guys we picked up is wanted for murder after we picked him up. These guys have done their homework on every one of these guys. And the Democrats want to protect them. It's absolutely outrageous.
Ahead on American Sunrise, from working with the Trump administration in securing the border to running for the U.S. Senate in Texas, the Lone Star State's Attorney General Ken Paxton is standing by right now for a wide-ranging interview. You definitely do not want to miss it. Plus, a federal judge has blocked the Trump administration's push to end DEI practices in schools. So, where will all of this end? We'll discuss ahead. And President Trump is headed overseas for Pope Francis's funeral tomorrow. What other heads of state will be there? Plus, as one pontiff is laid to rest and another is set to be selected, we're digging into a centuries-old manuscript by an Irish archbishop that says we may be living in the end of times. Those stories and so much more right now on American Sunrise.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
We have breaking news to share with you.
politics,
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
we've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina. Good morning. Happy Freedom Friday to you. Yes, it is Puppy Friday as well. A lot happening in the news. Colby's right here on the sofa next to me, as you can see. And he will be for the show, and we'll talk to him a little at the end. I am Dr. Gina. Let's bring in David Brody. He's in Washington, D.C., and T. Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning,
Dr. Gina and David.
good to have you as we walk into this weekend, right, Terrance?
Yeah, you might be walking. I'm sprinting. Trust me. Can't wait for the end of this show. I am sprinting into the weekend. One of the big stories today, of course, President Trump is going to be leaving for Italy here within the hour. And the big talker is how that trip is ultimately going to pan out in terms of not only his position on the world stage, but whether he'll be pulled to the side and have some meetings on the side, David, since so many world leaders are going to be there. He alluded to it yesterday during a news conference in the Oval Office.
I definitely think there'll be side conversations. There's no doubt about it. So many world leaders. Having said that, I'm just more excited about the seating chart. I was looking at Vatican protocol this morning because I've got nothing better to do at 5:45 in the morning. And so I'm looking and literally they have the bishops and the cardinals. They'll be in the front row. Second row is the non-Catholic. That's right. The non-Catholic royalty, Prince William, others. And then in the third row, President Trump will be in the third row, apparently. They haven't officially released the seating chart, but that's the way the Vatican protocol works. And they do it alphabetically, Gina. So you got T for Trump and Z for Zelensky. They won't be sitting next to each other, but they'll be in the same row. Interesting.
Ooh, interesting. Well, it'll be a morning of a lot of drama. I'm sure a lot of pageantry. And we will be following it and keeping all of this audience informed. Let's check out today's Bible verse, you guys. Today we're going to go to Psalm 102:17, and it says, "He shall regard the prayer of the destitute and shall not despise their prayer." That's right. He listens. He listens all the time. And a federal judge, you guys, has temporarily blocked President Trump's push to end DEI in K-12 schools. This ruling, part of a lawsuit brought by the National Education Association and the ACLU, remarkably, right? This accused the Trump administration of violating the First Amendment and due process rights of teachers. This is back in February. The Education Department ordered schools to end DEI practices or to risk losing federal funding. So for more, we're going to bring in somebody who knows a little something about this. This is a Texas Attorney General. He is in studio with us here in the Palm Beaches this morning. Ken Paxton, welcome to the show. Thank you so much. I want to get your thoughts on not just this, but really so much of this kind of thing happening with the Trump administration. Your comments.
Yeah, we've never seen anything like this. We occasionally got injunctions, nationwide injunctions. I would say we got a few during the Biden administration, a few during the Obama administration. But the level that we're at now is unsustainable. The president can't operate. He can't issue executive orders that he's responsible for federal funding. He's responsible for immigration. And there's just so many issues now where these federal judges are substituting their judgment for that of the executive branch. And that was never foreseen by the founders of this country. And we need to do something to rein in the power of these judges because they're not acting in their constitutional role.
Attorney General Paxton, Terrance Bates here. In the past, when we've talked, it seemed, and this was obviously mostly during the Biden administration, you were in court just about every other day challenging the Biden administration's policies as it relates to the border. Now you have an administration that is laying out the policies that you obviously agree with, but you still seem to find yourself, or the federal government in general, as you mentioned, seems to find itself in court. How do we get around this?
Look, it's the Democrats, the left, they were planning for this to slow down the agenda. They saw how we operated. The difference was that the Biden administration was ignoring federal law. He was ignoring his role as the executive to enforce federal law. So that's what we were trying to get Biden to do. We're trying to enforce deportations and enforce the laws that were put in place by the legislature. In this case, the president is acting on federal law. That's why he's been successful from day one with immigration. That's why it's completely changed on the border almost overnight. It's almost like a miracle, but it's not. It's just the enforcement of federal law. And so these judges are obviously opposed to that politically, and so they are stepping in the role of the executive branch and trying to stop this. That's completely illegal, and we need to find a way to rein that in.
Attorney General David Brody here in D.C. Let me show you this AP headline here. Of course, we know that this happened, about 2 weeks ago or so. The Republican-led House did pass this bill to limit nationwide orders from federal district judges. Some are also calling to impeach these judges. This House bill passed will limit the injunctions. Where are you on this as it relates to impeachment, limiting the injunctions, all of the above, or Ultimately, my question is about a constitutional crisis, which is that Democrats say there's a constitutional crisis because of the man in the Oval Office. But talk to me about the judiciary here, because it seems to me it could be very much the other way around, actually.
You know, the founders envisioned that the judiciary would be the weaker branch of government. They never envisioned what's going on now, where the judiciary would step in and take over. And I think it's appropriate to consider. Congress rarely does it, impeaching judges that are not actually following their constitutional role. And the left is right. There is a constitutional crisis. It's not what they think it is. President Trump, operating under his executive powers under the U.S. Constitution, is appropriate and fine. And certainly, if he crossed the line, he could be challenged. But that's not what's going on here. These are federal judges that Congress has the ability to step in and stop. And there is an appropriate role for some injunctions. We stopped Joe Biden when he announced day one that he was going to stop deporting people under federal law. Well, he doesn't have the authority to do that, and that affects the entire country. Within a few days, we had a nationwide injunction stopping him from not following the law. So if a president is not going to follow the law, that's one thing. But when a president is following the law, no judge should be able to step in and substitute their judgment for that of the president of the United States.
You've been a champion for this president. I don't think you've ever blinked on this president. I have a bizarre way of keeping track of that. Those who have blinked, some of them, they're still in the administration. President Trump is perhaps a little more forgiving than some MAGA folks out here. But your role in this administration has been critical, really, from early on, even going back to 2016. So now you are venturing into a new role. I want you to tell us all about that.
So I'm running for the U.S. Senate for Texas. We have a great senator, Ted Cruz, who's done a fantastic job. He's in the beginning of his third term. We have another U.S. senator wanting to run for his fifth term, so he would end up serving 30 years if he's elected, which I certainly hope doesn't happen. But I've watched him operate for decades, and he has not represented the people of Texas. He's focused on issues that help Mitch McConnell and the swamp in Washington. He has not represented Texas. And maybe if he were from Maine, we might be excited about what he's doing, but not from Texas. We need a solid senator who's not out proposing gun restrictions with Joe Biden and helping the Biden administration limit the use of the Second Amendment in our country, or a guy that's out proposing that we shouldn't build a border wall, opposition to exactly what Donald Trump wanted to do. So, and this is a guy that has not supported Donald Trump. He's been just the opposite. In 2016, he said that Trump was an albatross around our neck. And then more recently, in 2024, he suggested that we should have another nominee, that Trump was not going to win, that he couldn't win, and that he potentially was guilty of crime. So this is not a guy that's been behind Trump. He now is. I call him Johnny Come Lately. He's now behind Trump because he wants his endorsement. But the reality is, this is not the kind of representation we want in Texas.
Just one question real quick, David, before I turn it back over to you. Do you have some polling that says that you can win? Because being an incumbent is difficult, but you are so popular, and Texas is so much more conservative than that, Senator. Yeah,
it's really shocking, even to me. We did 3 separate polls. We did one with the president's pollster, Tony Fabrizio. That had me at a 25-point lead. I think it was 53-28. Then we did another poll with Ted Cruz's pollster. We were up by 25 in that poll. And then we did a third poll that we were up by 27. So the margins are significant. And I think the people, they know what John Cornyn is about, and they know what I'm about. They know I've been in statewide office for almost 12 years, and he will have been in statewide office for over 30. So the people of Texas have watched both of us, and it's baked in. They already know where we're at and what we believe in and what we're willing to do as representing our states.
And here's Senator Cornyn in the Houston Chronicle saying that he's been working hand in glove with the president, which I know you just took him to task on. I'm curious of how you defeat him, other than the rhetoric that he's saying and kind of the duplicity, the duplicitous nature of that. Other than that, he raises a lot of money. How much of a challenge is that for you?
Oh, look, he is going to raise a lot of money from Washington. I know how it works. The Senatorial Commission, these guys work together. It's appropriate. But I'll raise money in Texas, and I'll have plenty of money to highlight his record. And I have him. These issues are not issues that are just made up, or these are issues that he's on, camera saying. And so he can say now he's one way, but the reality is we can show that he has been living for the last 23 years in a different world, and that world is not the world of representing Texas the way Texas wants to be represented. It's a world where he did what Mitch McConnell wanted. And look, we're all sick of it, and it's just time for change. No one needs to be running for being the U.S. Senate for 30 years, including John Cornyn.
All right, so if elected, what issues do you bring to the table? What kind of leadership, what kind of different leadership do you bring to the table in order to move Texas forward?
Well, first of all, I'm not afraid to take on the bureaucracy, the establishment. I've been doing it my whole career, 12 years in the Texas House, Texas Senate. I was one of the most conservative legislators in the state. You can verify that. Same as Texas Attorney General. We've led the nation. We sued Joe Biden 107 times, and if you look at all the other states combined, I don't think they did that many combined. So, and I did the same thing with the Obama administration. So, when I get to the U.S. Senate, I will lead. I will not be afraid to speak up. I'm not afraid of the establishment. I'm not even afraid of Republican leadership. We need to take on the challenges we have, and we have many, including spending, and we need to make sure that we are passing tax cuts to help the American people. I'm a big fan of the Trump tax cuts, and I'm a bigger fan of doing even more.
That's Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. It's been an honor to have you in Palm Beach this week, and a super honor for us to have you in studio here in our Palm Beach studio and on air with us this morning on American Sunrise. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you. Y'all have a great day and great weekend.
You too.
You too.
All right. Tell your friends in Texas. They've got a great Senate candidate, and they need to donate and vote and all those good things. Coming up, we check out the hottest headlines from the RAV newsroom with T. Bates, and later, one House Democrat going against his party for sending the wrong message on illegal immigration. We're going to take a dive into that just ahead this Freedom Friday here on American Sunrise.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
Live from the Vatican City there. About 200,000 people will show up for the Pope's funeral, including 200 high-profile foreign visitors and dignitaries. And, of course, that will include our president. That's right, our president, President Donald J. Trump. All right, welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. I'm David Brody. Coming up, the story of a moderate Democrat. Did I just say moderate Democrat? Yeah, there are just a few left, believe it or not. And we're going to hear what he has to say about his own party, and it's not good if you're a far-left Democrat. First, though, T. Bates standing by with the latest headlines from the Real America's Voice newsroom, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can right the course of America.
President Trump is headed to Italy within the hour in advance of tomorrow's funeral for Pope Francis. He'll be among many world leaders flocking to the Vatican to pay their respects. During an Oval Office meeting with Norway's Prime Minister on Thursday, the president said he expects to meet with a number of fellow heads of state during his trip, particularly as he and his administration are taking a central role in ending various wars and conflicts around the world.
Of all the leaders in the world today, no leader is working harder to prevent wars or end them than President Trump is right now. That's why we're talking to Iran. That's why we're engaged with Ukraine and Russia. It's the desire to prevent these wars from breaking out and to end the ones that exist already. And again, I just think it's tremendous for our country to be led by a president who desires to bring peace and establish peace and protect peace.
Meantime, the Trump administration is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to uphold the president's executive order banning transgender people from serving in the military. The attempted ban was blocked by a federal judge who said the executive order likely violates the Constitution's Fifth Amendment, which is the right to equal protection under the law. In its filing appealing that case to the Supreme Court, the Justice Department argues the judge's injunction, quote, cannot be squared with the substantial deference that the Department of Defense's professional military judgments are owed. Gender identity versus biological gender is at the heart of the president's EO. He clearly lays it out, writing, a man's assertion that he is a woman and his requirement that others honor this falsehood is not consistent with the humility and selflessness required of a service member. If upheld by the High Court, the Trump order will reverse a policy that was implemented by the Biden administration, which allows transgender troops to serve openly in the U.S. Armed Forces. Sanctuary cities across the country are celebrating a bit of a victory after a federal judge in California ruled to ban the Trump administration from denying or putting conditions on federal funds for those cities. The administration in cities like San Francisco, Chicago, and Denver have been at odds because the municipalities limit cooperation with federal immigration efforts. The case in question was brought by San Francisco. Thursday's injunction continued a trend of federal judges striking down Trump presidential orders. The EO in this case directs the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security to withhold federal funds from sanctuary jurisdictions. Another order says that all federal agencies should ensure that payments to state and local governments not, quote, abet so-called sanctuary policies that seek to shield illegal aliens from deportation. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'll have more headlines coming up here shortly, particularly as the papal conclave is set to get underway soon to choose the next pope. Will this be the last pope? Ahead, a look at the prophecy of the popes and its chilling accuracy and conclusion. First, though, a quick look at this day in history. It was on this day in 1990 that the Hubble Space Telescope, a sophisticated optical observatory that was built under the supervision of NASA, was placed into operation by the crew of the Space Shuttle Discovery. It has now traveled more than 2 million miles. The images of deep space it's captured are beyond imagination. More American Sunrise coming your way in 2 minutes.
New York. It's where I'm from. They got rid of H&H Bagels at 79th and Broadway. It destroyed me. It took years to recover. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. All right, so one House Democrat is slamming his own party for heading to El Salvador to visit the deported alleged gang member Cuellar Abrego Garcia. Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar said Democrats need to be more focused on border security than focusing on bringing Garcia back home. Wait, that sounds like he's a Republican. No, he's a Democrat. Weird. Cuellar added that the border needs to be the conversation that needs to be had inside the party. At least 4 House Democrats, by the way, have visited Garcia, and Senator Chris Van Hollen did as well. I hope the margaritas were worth it. For more, let's bring in managing editor of the Daily Signal, Tyler O'Neill. Tyler, great to have you with us. You know, Cuellar back in the day, I mean, well, he's considered a moderate. He'd be considered like a blue dog Democrat. And technically, I was looking this morning, there are only 10 left officially. Now inside the Democrat Party, 10 moderate blue dog Democrats. It was like 54 2 decades ago. So that to me seems to be the real issue with the Democrat Party.
Yeah, well, what we've seen the Democrats go, and this is the thing, Democrat didn't used to be synonymous with progressive. And of course, I like to put that in quotes because progressivism is not really progressive. It's just bureaucratic. It's technocratic. The idea of a progressive state is that you will have these bureaucrats making decisions for the American people. It's actually anti-democratic. And yet, whenever these Democrats see a threat to the progressive state, they immediately go, oh, it's the end of our democracy. It's the end of our democracy. People like Henry Cuellar are really important in that party because they serve as a reality check, especially on an issue like this one, which is so important. I mean, do Democrats really want to hitch their wagons to illegal alien gang members who, you know, President Trump is working hard to deport because this is the very beginning of Trump's longer promise to start to really deport these 9 million plus illegal aliens that Biden effectively imported into the country. And it's very interesting to me to see the left go crazy about due process when it comes to deporting these people when they didn't seem to care anything about due process when these people were being brought into the country.
Well, you talked about hitching their wagons to the wrong thing. Check out this Politico headline. Anna Paulina Luna to visit El Salvador amid dueling congressional trips. She is set to meet with the country's president instead of Abrego Garcia. Okay, that's at least maybe slightly better. But still, I think there's a message that she's trying to send here, no?
Yeah, well, I think she's highlighting the difference between the Republican and Democratic Party here. The Democratic Party is lining up to support an illegal alien criminal who, you know, well, maybe I shouldn't say criminal entirely. He is a member of this gang, and he has had this negative, you know, this violent history. But I don't know how many specific crimes he's been charged with, except, oh yeah, entering the country illegally, which last time I checked is a crime. But she is going and saying, no, I'm going to meet with the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, because I want to see the other side of this whole situation. And she wants to hear about the deals that President Trump has made with President Bukele and highlight the difference between siding with these criminals and siding with the enforcement, the people who are holding them, who are working with the Trump administration to address this tremendous border crisis.
They see everything in color, and evidence is House Speaker Mike Johnson slammed The View for saying President Trump's child bonus is only aimed at white people. This is unbelievable. Take a listen.
The View is an absurd program. Yours, on the other hand, Will, is fantastic. You're doing a great show, and I'm so honored to be with you. Look, that's no surprise what The View is doing there. Every creative idea that the president and this White House come up with, they pan immediately, no matter what merit it may have. We are the Republican Party. We're the pro-family party. We always have been. We take great pride in that. We're working every day to rebuild a culture of life in America. We want to advance policies that help families and make it easier to raise a child in America. We support all children. We love all life. That's what we've always been about. It's actually in our platform, and the Democratic Party stands for the opposite. You know, those views illustrate that.
We are so tired. I think the Democrat rank and file are tired of hearing everything made into race. How in the world do you even get to that conclusion unless you are the racist?
Unless you're automatically assuming that the other party is thinking about race. I mean, the gap here between what happened and the views take is astronomical. What we're seeing, and what thank God for Elon Musk, who is going on X every day talking about the depopulation crisis. Our birth rate has declined. The highest recent birth rate was in 2007. Let that sink in for a moment. Like a country that is not reproducing and replacing themselves that way is a country without a future. And this is happening across the world. This is not just a uniquely American problem. And so we really have to look at how can we incentivize, feminism has changed our society in really in kind of absurd ways sometimes. But, there are some positive things that happened. I mean, women's suffrage, but then there are a lot of negative things. Men are increasingly not incentivized to have skin in the game to raise their own children. And so this is a really big social problem that we have to address. And President Trump said in response to one question that maybe having a baby bonus would be a good idea. And this is being taken as some sort of insult to women. That's what I heard Whoopi Goldberg say. And then suggesting that it's all racially motivated. It's not. It's about fighting a depopulation crisis that's going to make life harder for our society going forward. And so, we have to be serious and we have to have different ways to solve this. And maybe the baby bonus isn't the best way, but this is an idea. And what I see from the left is demonizing the very basis of an idea as opposed to coming up with another solution.
Great point.
Yeah. Hey, Tyler, before we head to break, I want to show you a live picture because we're waiting for President Trump to leave. Actually, this is Joint Base Andrews. He's about to get on Air Force One and head over to Italy, going to the Pope's funeral. Wanted to get your kind of take on what I say he hopes to accomplish. Look, you don't go overseas. I understand it's for the Pope's funeral, but there's got to be some things on the agenda as well. And I don't mean officially, but unofficially, like what he will be maybe thinking on the way over and what he might be doing over there. Because as we're approaching that 100-day mark, it's next Wednesday, April 30th, will be 100 days in office. So your kind of take on President Trump as we approach that 100-day mark.
Well, I'm not entirely sure what he's planning to do behind the scenes. Our White House correspondent Elizabeth Mitchell will be on that. But what I do want to emphasize here is that last administration, we saw the FBI go after what they called radical traditional Catholics, citing the Southern Poverty Law Center, which essentially demonizes all Catholics for what they believe. And now we have President Trump making a point to go to the Pope's funeral. Now, this Pope is not always the most popular Pope when it comes to conservative Catholics. But I think it speaks volumes that President Trump, and of course before him, J.D. Vance on Easter Sunday met with Pope Francis shortly before his tragic passing. But I think President Trump is showing that even as we're approaching his 100-day mark, and he has a lot of work to do here in the States, he still cares about the Catholics here in the States and across the world to go and pay his respects to this Pope.
Tyler O'Neill, always great to have you with us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks again so much for having me.
All right. Have a great weekend. Coming up, President Trump now slamming Vladimir Putin for launching more strikes on Kyiv. How will this impact the peace talks? We're going to take a look at that next on American Sunrise.
of Air Force One as it prepares to carry the president to the funeral of the Pope happening in Rome, of course. Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina. Thank you for joining us. It is time for today's health news, sponsored by the Wellness Company and Under the Microscope today. We know millions of Americans are dependent on daily meds, but sometimes we don't realize that many of these drugs are made in other countries, sometimes completely on the other side of the world. And those manufacturers especially seem to live in China. Could turn on the U.S. at any point. President Trump is implementing a dual strategy to bring down skyrocketing drug prices and bring pharmaceutical manufacturing back to America, back to the home front, America first. Trump says major tariffs on pharmaceuticals are on the way. And while the legacy media panics over the possibility of these tariffs driving up costs, they're forgetting PBMs are the real enemy. We're talking about pharmacy benefit managers, the middleman between health insurance companies and big pharma that manipulate prices behind closed doors, marking up your drug prices by factors of sometimes 1,000% of what they actually cost. These PBMs never create a pill, never prescribe a drug, just drive up your costs. President Trump has vowed to take them on, removing the excess profits away from exploitative entities and back to you, the patients. So, congratulations to President Trump for seeing through such a complicated issue. You can know the problem is the PBMs, and if you want to read a little bit more about it, you can look at my article in Town Hall about that. It is a new day in America and a new administration in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of excitement and optimism about the future, but the reality is there's also a lot of work to do, especially when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system, because you know the forces responsible for breaking it aren't going to simply go away, and the challenges we face won't just disappear overnight. So now more than ever, you want to be prepared, and that, of course, is where the Wellness Company comes in. Their doctors are medical professionals. You can trust them. Their line of medical prescription kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. We've got the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit. These prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to tell you how to use the meds in the kit. So whether it's flu or strep or COVID or the bird flu, a trip to the beach or a trip overseas, the Wellness Company has the perfect prescription kit designed to keep you safe and healthy. Making America healthy again, you guys, it starts at home. Do your part, protect the health of you and your family. Go to twc.health/RAV today. Give it an order. That is twc.health/RAV. Use your promo code RAV. That will save you, David, you say it, 10%. 10%. All right, David.
I can't say it as well as you, Gina. You know the deal. President Trump now slamming Russian President Vladimir Putin for launching strikes on Ukraine. So Trump posted on Truth Social the following. He said, should I do the imitation? No, everybody does the imitation. I'm not going to do it. But he said, I am not happy with the Russian strikes on Kyiv. Not necessary and very bad timing. And then he said, Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done. At least 12 people died and 90 others were injured in the strikes on Kyiv. All comes after Trump slammed Zelensky for prolonging the war. There it is. There's the Truth Social post. Vladimir, stop. For more, let's bring in retired Navy captain and GOP strategist Armen Kurdian. Armen, always good to see you. So President Trump has told both sides, Armen, to cool it regarding rhetoric and action. And they're not listening, Armen. But why should Putin listen, since he knows that if Trump walks away from negotiating peace, the United States money toward Ukraine is going to dry up, and then Putin's eventually going to take over all of Ukraine? I mean, to me, am I missing something here?
Good morning, David. Good morning, Dr. Gina. So
good morning.
Here's a way of looking at it. Democrats in the U.S. could take a page out of Vladimir Putin's book, who doesn't get whipsawed every time Donald Trump says something. He is simply motivated by action. Now, I think that Trump's overtures to Ukraine and Russia were necessary to try to demonstrate or try to work towards peace, or at least in a way almost prove to Trump himself that Putin is not interested in a negotiated settlement. He only understands peace through strength. So we don't want a Neville Chamberlain moment here. But in terms of what has happened, I think we've seen that Putin is not going to be swayed by Trump's words. He's only going to be swayed by being compelled and forced to the negotiating table. He's not going to be cajoled into it. So your point is well taken. And even Trump is starting to admit that this is a lot harder to get to than he expects. And perhaps he will do what is necessary to force Russia to the negotiating table and end this war.
There's a headline in The Hill that reads, Fetterman calls on Trump to strike and destroy Iran's nuclear facilities. Fetterman said never will be able to negotiate with Iran, that the Trump administration has been negotiating with them. But what's your take on this? Do you think Fetterman is right on this, or do you think you could set him straight?
I honestly don't see Iran engaging in any kind of deal which is going to eliminate their nuclear program or prevent their ability to actually go and fund support all the Shiite militia proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah throughout the Middle East. They're playing for time. They can move ahead. Trump's plan to perhaps move them away from a nuclear weapon in exchange for financial support, or at least reduction of sanctions, I just don't think it's going to work. Ultimately, I do believe that at some point the United States is going to have to take out that nuclear capability of Iran. I think the United States is the only country that can do it with the best chance of success. I don't think it should be Israel. I don't think they'll have as much of a chance of success to do it. If it does happen, it needs to happen on the part of the U.S. I am hopeful that it doesn't come to that, because if that does happen, then that could lead to a wider Middle East regional war. Frankly, until the mullahs are dead and buried, this miserable, stinking religious theocracy in Iran is going to continue to be a thorn in the side of planet Earth. And the only way for this to end is for them to be gone.
Armin Kurdian, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Good morning.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Armin.
All right. The fight to keep a Native American-inspired mascot rages on for one New York high school, and
Thank you. Have a great day.
Found an unlikely ally in President Trump. It's enough to make someone like David Zier reach his breaking point. We'll bring you the latest on that. And later, centuries-old prophecy from an Irish saint predicts that Pope Francis's successor is the final pope. As the College of Cardinals prepare to select the man to sit on the throne of St. Peter, is Judgment Day coming sooner than we thought? We'll get to that, and we'll be back in just 2 minutes.
Now I do, yes. Welcome back. Time to stay awake, not woke, brought to us by the 1775 Coffee Company. 1775 just launched Rejuvenate, the first anti-aging coffee of its kind. It's the first coffee infused with CAAKG, a clinically studied ingredient shown to support strength, energy, and healthy aging at the cellular level. As we age, CAAKG levels drop, leading to slower recovery, less energy, and feeling older than we should. 1775's Rejuvenate brings longevity support without changing a thing. Just better coffee that does more for you. And right now, for a limited time, you can get their longevity bundle worth over $250 of premium coffee and gear for just $99. But here's the catch. They only made 1,000 of these bundles, and when they're gone for good. You get 2 bags of their Rejuvenate anti-aging coffee, a rare pea berry roast, one of the most elite beans on earth, less than 5% of coffee crops worldwide, and exclusive 1775 merch that you won't find in stores. It's made for people who still believe in America first. This is small batch, single origin, roasted fresh every week in Miami. Just real coffee with one powerful, proven ingredient built to help you feel your best for longer. Head to 1775coffee.com/Rav and grab your longevity bundle while it's still in stock. Now, let's send it over to our caffeinated segment. We are caffeinated this morning, and we are going to stay awake, not woke. The Massapequa High School Chiefs are staying strong in their fight to keep their mascot. The school is getting support from President Trump on social media, promising to defend their mascot from getting canceled by woke New York officials. The Long Island High School is facing pressure from the state's Department of Education to change their mascot, claiming that it's offensive to Native American communities. But the school has been pushing back against the rebranding, which they say would cost at least $1 million.
Been embedded in our community, in our town for so long.
I don't feel it's a disgrace to them all. If anything, we're honoring them.
I think we need to keep it because it's really important to our school.
They don't say nothing about the Kansas City Chiefs in pro football.
As a Massapequa Chief, it's just a part of our town.
We're proud of it.
They're certainly fighting back, and President Trump is weighing in on the mascot madness in the Oval Office. Take a look at what he had to say.
We were talking about Massapequa, Long Island, the Chiefs. They call themselves the Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs, they're not changing their name. A great team, great people, great owners, great coach, and quarterback. I love the quarterback, like his girlfriend, too.
All right, I guess that's enough to make you reach your breaking point. So lucky for us, David Zier is here with us now. He's the host of Breaking Point for us every weekend on Real America's Voice. David, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Hi, Emily. Yeah, I am definitely at my breaking point. My whole family went to Massapequa High School. Oh, wow. And I got to tell you, they sued the state, Massapequa, along with neighboring school districts, but it was dismissed. So Trump is their only hope to put pressure on the State Board of Education to change. The school's mascot is a Tacapusha Lenape Sachem Indian who sold the Rockaway Peninsula in that area just a few miles from Massapequa to the Dutch in the 1600s and offered Native American Indian warriors to protect the Dutch settlers against other Indian tribes who threatened them. So this land wasn't taken by force, and Long Island is 1,400 square miles, and you can't go anywhere that doesn't use an American Indian name for their hamlets or their roads or in their schools. And the word Massapequa itself is an Algonquin Native American Indian term that translates to great water land. The name reflects the area's abundance of freshwater springs and waterways. And the Massapequa Park's village seal with a high school in that depicts Tacapusha as their mascot. My mother designed that village seal 70 years ago when she was 13 years old. She won an art contest. They adopted her drawing with Tacapusha in it, and that's the seal you see right now. And they still use it in their official seal in their buildings and all their vehicles. And
that is incredible. Incredible, David. I didn't know you had such a personal connection to all of this. You know, I want them to fight even harder now that I know that you're connected to this. You know, I went to Canton High School in Michigan. We were the Canton Chiefs. And in 2023, they changed their name to the Cobras. And I am still so upset about this. I was a Chief. I graduated as a Chief. And so I hope that the Massapequa community continues their fight. And I'm so glad that President Trump is sticking by them and by their side throughout all of this. Now, David, tell us what is coming up on Breaking Point this weekend. Are you going to be covering this at all on your show?
I do talk about it. And, you know, I grew up in the Sachem Indian School District similar situation, but our state budget is larger than New York and Texas combined, $255 billion. Talk about that. I have candidate for Minnesota governor and former UFC fighter Brad Cuellar. I have John Lee, the toy manufacturer and the man behind the cultural phenomenon, Thomas the Tank Engine, appealing to Trump on the tariffs and the impacts on the toy industry. And I have Spencer Morrison, the author of Reshored, who's an advocate for short-term pain for long-term gain regarding putting the tariffs in effect so we can get more manufacturing on U.S. soil. So don't miss it tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Sounds like it's going to be a great show, David. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, Emily. Have a wonderful weekend.
Oh, you too. You too. Now, coming up, Pope Francis's funeral is tomorrow, but a centuries-old manuscript, allegedly written by an Irish saint, is bringing a troubling prophecy to the forefront. We have more coming up on American Sunrise.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm American Sunrise correspondent Emily Finn. It's time now for our Moment of Faith, brought to us by Lee Greenwood and the God Bless the USA Bible. In focus today, tomorrow's funeral for Pope Francis and a prophecy from a 12th century saint that's raising concerns amongst the faithful. Amongst those attending tomorrow will be President Trump alongside other world leaders, heads of state, and royals, including Prince William of Britain, President Macron of France, Spain's King and Queen, and Brazil's president. The event is expected to be the largest, most prominent gathering of world leaders since U.S. President Donald Trump's inauguration. The late pontiff's liberal opinions on global issues occasionally put him at odds with some of the leaders who will be in attendance at his funeral. Joining me now with insight is Father Brian Horgan from the St. Lucie Catholic Church of Highland Beach, Florida. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning.
So, Father, what do you think made some Catholics feel that Pope Francis was a renegade pontiff with liberal ideologies?
Well, I suppose to answer that question, you have to look at who he succeeded. And the tradition in which he succeeded was a very conservative one, a very kind of black and white area. There's kind of no gray areas in that. And coming from South America, coming from a Jesuit background, his theology would have been a little more liberal than what we would normally expect from maybe a European or a different cardinal like that. So I think when he was elected Pope, he said that the cardinals have gone to the ends of the earth to find a Pope. And I also think that was his theology, that he wanted to always go to the ends of society and welcome those that society tends to forget or neglect, that he reached to the ends of the earth in his theology itself.
Absolutely. I think all eyes are going to be on who is the next pope. We've been hearing Cardinal Sarah's name thrown around a lot. I know that he has more conservative ideology. So we'll be keeping a close eye on all of that. But Father, people have been talking about this since the pontiff's death. This headline: 1,000-year-old prophecy predicts next pope after Francis dies and issues a chilling warning for humanity. I want to give our viewers the full picture here. There's reportedly a 900-year-old prophetic manuscript called the Prophecy of Popes. It was written by a 12th century Irish archbishop who was canonized as Saint Malachy. The manuscript was reportedly discovered in the Vatican's secret archives in 1590, and it claims to predict the identity of each pope, starting with Celestine II in 1143 and ending with a pope named Peter the Roman in the year 2027. I mean, that's less than 2 years away. Peter the Roman is foretold to be the last pope. According to the prophecy, quote, Peter the Roman, who will nourish the sheep in many tribulations. When they are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The end. That's it. That's over. Can you enlighten us about Malachy? I mean, his visions, Peter the Roman. I mean, this is wild to think about as a Catholic. Do you really think that Judgment Day could be coming in 2027? Are we looking at potentially the last pope here?
I don't believe so. When you look at the prophecy of Malachy, who died in 1148, you can see it's made up of 112 cryptic kind of phrases, Latin phrases. He does mention, or people have interpreted his words meaning, of popes and successors, but he also mentions anti-popes. And I think the modern kind of understanding of St. Malachy now is, Ireland is known for its saints and scholars. I think we should focus more on his saintly life than his scholarly life, because most historians believe it was written or published to influence the conclave of 1590.
Right.
Whereby the Pope that he mentioned in that, Cardinal Simoncelli, had been appointed Pope, and they wanted Malachy's prophecy to fit into that. So I don't believe that there is an imminent threat or anything like that. I mean, death could come to any of us at any time. So I think we should focus on living and not focus on dying.
Well, that's a really good message there. I mean, we can't stop it, even if the end is coming. We just got to keep praying and keep living a good life. Father Brian Horgan, really appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for coming on the show this morning.
God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless. Back with the second hour of American Sunrise in just 2 minutes. Stick around.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's hit song and the most recognized patriotic anthem in America, God Bless the USA. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with a handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. With its large print and slim design, this Bible invites you to explore God's Word anywhere, anytime. The God Bless the USA Bible makes the perfect gift and cherished family heirloom keepsake to pass on to future generations. Designed for an easy reading experience in the trusted King James Version translation, this large print Bible is perfect to take to church, Bible study, work, and for traveling. Order yours today at GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
Coming up on this second hour of American Sunrise, President Trump tells Vladimir Putin to stop the deadly attacks on Ukraine. So, what will Europe do if the United States decides to leave Ukraine to defend itself? We'll discuss. Could gas and grocery prices dip to new lows this summer? President Trump is promoting some good news about America's economy. Find out what it is. And a must-see moment. Find out what happened in the Oval Office when President Trump and a wounded veteran got together. It's all coming up right now on this second hour of American Sunrise.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of American Sunrise on a Friday. It's the last hour. I'm David Brody, coming to you from D.C., Dr. G in West Palm, T. Bates in our Denver newsroom. The last hour will be in the triple box. I know it's going to just really be difficult to deal with over the weekend. That will no longer be in a triple box. Hey, Gina, sorry, I just got distracted there for a second. These judges, they're a piece of work. We got this another federal judge blocking Trump's push to cut funding to public schools over diversity programs. So, it's like he's fighting. It's just like whack-a-mole with these judges.
Yeah, it really is. And, hopefully President Trump can take care of a lot of this. I know there's a lot for him to do, but it really is frustrating. And I believe I heard, I'm trying to think who it was I had heard interviewed or read an article that said that more than 50% of the employees in a certain department, and I'm racking my brain to remember what it was, but were spending their time, more than 50% of their time, on nothing except DEI, not getting anything else done. I don't know if you heard this report, but so those kinds of things really need to change. It starts at the top, it trickles down, and it's the American public has spoken, David and Terrance. Hopefully some of this will change during this administration for good.
Yeah. I will say this. I think checks and balances are healthy. It's part of our system. But it seems that the checks are getting out of control right now and they're imbalanced. And I'm not so sure how to bring it back into balance. And so
you mean in
it's
terms of the judiciary branch?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the judiciary branch is supposed to be a check and balance. It's also a check and balance on the executive branch and on the legislative branch. It's supposed to be that. But again, I would argue that right now those checks are imbalanced, and I'm not so sure how to get it back into balance. And it's something that President Trump is having to fight right now.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, something else making news this morning. We got the ex-Congressman George Santos. He's facing sentencing for fraud after he duped the donors and voters. I'll be honest with you, Gina. I mean, this is my view. And maybe it's not the most popular view in the world, but I don't really care. I don't care about the story. I really don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I care about what he did, but like George Santos, like, who cares? Who cares? Really, like, if you line 10 people up on a street and say, who's George Santos? They'd be like, I'm sorry, George from Seinfeld? Who? Who exactly? I don't know.
I agree with you, David, in principle, but I think the story here is how he made a mockery of our system of government and how he duped voters. And so I think from a bigger picture, I get you. I don't care. It's not my district. I don't vote for him. I don't necessarily respect him. But I do feel like he took something away from our system of government in terms of what he did and how he victimized victimized not just donors, but also how he victimized people who voted for him. That's my
corruption in Washington, yada, yada. I don't know.
He is not going away. I can assure you of that. I ran into him, I can't think where, some big national conference somewhere in another city, may have been CPAC. He had a very leftist person that I know who I used to debate on Fox News all the time, head to head, doing a documentary of him, which comes out this year. So expect to hear more from George Santos. I'll tell you something else. The Democrats would love to keep the reputation of George Santos alive and like to keep talking about it because that's about all they've got, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we won't talk about him anymore. And instead, we're going to talk about news of the day. President Trump headed to Italy this morning in advance of tomorrow's funeral for Pope Francis. He, of course, is going to be among many world leaders who are flocking to the Vatican to pay their respects. In fact, here's a live look at Air Force One, which is on the tarmac at Andrews Air Force Base, or Joint Base Andrews, as it's called these days. He and the First Lady will be boarding Air Force One here within the next 30 minutes or so, and then taking off headed for the Vatican. During an Oval Office meeting with Norway's Prime Minister on Thursday, though, President Trump said that he expects to meet with a number of fellow heads of state during his trip, particularly as he and his administration are taking a central role in ending various conflicts and wars around the world.
Of all the leaders in the world today, no leader is working harder to prevent wars or end them than President Trump is right now. That's why we're talking to Iran. That's why we're engaged with Ukraine and Russia. It's the desire to prevent these wars from breaking out and to end the ones that exist already. And again, I just think it's tremendous for our country to be led by a president who desires to bring peace and establish peace and protect peace.
Meantime, the Trump administration is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to uphold the president's executive order banning transgender people from serving in the military. The attempted ban was blocked by a federal judge who said the executive order likely violates the Constitution's Fifth Amendment right to equal protection clause under the law. In its filing appealing the case to the Supreme Court, the Justice Department argues that the judge's injunction, quote, cannot be squared with a substantial deference that the Department of Defense's professional military judgments are owed. Gender identity versus biological gender is at the heart of the president's EO. He clearly lays it out, writing, "A man's assertion that he's a woman and his requirement that others honor this falsehood is not consistent with the humility and selflessness required of a service member." If upheld by the High Court, the Trump order will reverse a policy that was implemented by the Biden administration, allowing transgender troops to serve openly in the U.S. Armed Forces. Well, sanctuary cities across the country are celebrating a bit of a victory after a federal judge in California ruled to ban the Trump administration from denying or even putting conditions on federal funds for those cities. The administration in cities like San Francisco, Chicago, Denver, well, they've been at odds because of the municipalities limiting cooperation with the federal immigration efforts. The case in question was brought by San Francisco, though. Thursday's injunction continued a trend of federal judges striking down President Trump's presidential orders. The EO in this particular case directs the Justice Department and the Department of Homeland Security to withhold federal funds from sanctuary jurisdictions. Another order says that all federal agencies should ensure that payments to state and local governments not, quote, abet so-called sanctuary policies that seek to shield illegal aliens from deportation. That's a quick check of your headline. By the way, there at the bottom of your screen, you see Air Force One on the tarmac. We'll continue to monitor the situation, and as we wait for President Trump to arrive, board Air Force One and then head to Italy for the Pope's funeral tomorrow. All right, let's get you back over to David now, though.
Well, thank you, T. So from Air Force One to the White House, we're going to talk about that, turning out of the war between Russia and Ukraine, all of it rolled into one. A New York Times headline poses a certain question, and it says this: if America walks away from Ukraine, what will Europe do to help defend it? Our allies overseas are pushing for President Trump to stay the course. Of course they are. But the Trump administration has given an ultimatum about ending the war, and that is simply this: if the Trump administration's proposals are not accepted, the United States is ready to walk away from the table. For more, let's bring in RAV Chief White House Correspondent Brian Glenn. Brian, so, Trump goes to Truth Social and he posts this Vladimir stop post, stop it. But then the question, Brian, is, there's the Truth post there. Brian, why would Putin stop? I mean, he knows full well that President Trump is going to pull the plug on funding Ukraine and the whole war situation if there's no peace deal. So I don't know, why seek peace when Putin really wants total control over Ukraine? And that's eventually going to happen if the U.S. stops supporting Ukraine.
Yeah, it is. Good morning, David. I spoke to several Norwegian reporters just about this very subject and what would happen if the U.S. did back out of this and they were left to negotiate on their own, because primarily it's been the United States to President Trump to step up and negotiate this peace deal. What people may not know, that Zelensky himself cannot deed, if you will, Crimea to Russia, that has to go through their resolution. This has to go through a referendum, if you will, from the people of Ukraine, have to vote on that. So Zelensky himself does not have the authority to just turn over Crimea to Russia. One of the things that I pointed out to the Norwegian press is that we have spent, $380 billion, maybe even more, supporting this war. And if they cannot come up with a peace deal, we are just not going to be, and I like to say this, the conveyor belt of money to continue this war. But I'll say this. It's been, 3 years? Why hasn't Russia taken over all of Ukraine if they're so powerful? If they're so powerful, why have they barely even gotten a small portion of that country? So could they ever do it? I don't know. And it's interesting to point out that Norway does border Russia, so they are watching this very closely. And they do feel like the Oslo court system is very successful in negotiating peace. So if we do walk away from this, David, I think Norway feels a certain leadership in getting this deal done.
Brian, speaking of leadership, President Trump posted on Truth Social that grocery prices are way down. Gas and grocery prices are way down, he said, just like I said they would be. Eggs are plentiful and down 87%. Nice. FarmWeekNow.com forecasts gas and diesel fuel prices could dip to 5-year lows soon. Brian, part of this credit goes to Brooke Rollins. I have to tell you, I didn't think she could do it this fast. Pretty amazing. Yeah. And I'll tell you something else. Leftist media outlets not even acknowledging, but Brian, if he hadn't brought all these grocery prices way down as he has, they would be raising heck.
They would. Here's a little fun fact for you. This past Easter weekend, Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, the busiest airport in the world for flights in and out on a daily, broke an all-time record. It was their busiest day ever. That's before COVID, after COVID. That's the existence of that airport. So I just ask all the critics out there, do Americans have more money in their pocket to travel? I asked President Trump this very question on Air Force One 2 weeks ago, that this time last year, Americans were not saving to go on a family vacation. Quite honestly, they could not afford it because of gas, food, travel, airfare, lodging. They can now. Yeah. So despite what the leftist media says, the facts are in Trump's corner. It's more affordable than it was under Joe Biden right now.
Yeah, and some 4,500 eggs at the Easter egg roll, right? Just remarkable. Real eggs for the first time, I believe, at least in a long time, if not ever. And egg prices are down to so reasonable now. And more evidence coming out, thanks to RFK, about how amazing and healthy eggs are. So this is all good news, right, T?
No, absolutely.
It is.
Brian, stand by because we're watching. I'm sorry, Brian. We're watching Marine Force One getting ready to touch down here at Joint Base Andrews. President Trump, of course, getting ready to board Air Force One and head to Italy for the Pope's funeral. As we watch all of this, Brian, I'd like you to give us some reaction from the White House in terms of the plan for the funeral tomorrow. Obviously, I suspect that there will be some talks on the sidelines, President Trump not just going there specifically for the funeral. In fact, yesterday in the Oval Office, he said that he had planned on talking to some other world leaders. Do you know who he's going to be talking to? From what you're hearing from your sources inside the White House, what's the larger plan?
I believe Starmer will be there, Prime Minister Starmer. Macron will be there. I believe Moroni, Italy, will be there as well. So several world leaders will be there. I got this president's daily guidance this morning on the schedule on this. There's not a whole lot of time to do this. So if they do want to catch a few minutes of the president, it's going to be tight. He's only there for a couple hours at the funeral. Then he's going to turn around and fly back Saturday night back to Bedminster, where he'll spend Saturday night, and then Sunday, later on Sunday afternoon, late afternoon, early evening, fly back to the White House from Bedminster, New Jersey. So there's not a whole lot of time on this trip to have a few minutes with the president. But this is what we saw during the cathedral when he visited the reopening of the cathedral. World leaders were jumping over church pews just about to shake his hand and have a few minutes with him. That's what they were doing. And I had jokingly said, we've heard of wedding crashers, but funeral crashers might be more appropriate for this particular moment. So, this is a point, tariffs aside, the war in Ukraine aside, this is a point in time where you've got one guy, Donald J. Trump, the world's most powerful man, by a stroke of a pen can change economic markets overnight, global markets overnight, and can change world politics. So why not? Why wouldn't they want to have a few minutes with President Trump, even if it's just finding their seat in the pew at the cathedral? So I think it's a very historic moment in this country. I look forward to talking to President Trump about this trip. Side note here, I will be with President Trump on Air Force One Tuesday as we travel from the White House to Macomb, Michigan for the rally there. So I'll have a few minutes with him, hopefully, on that flight. And I'll ask him.
He's doing that rally in Michigan, obviously, on the eve of, or the day before, the 100-day mark. For sure, that's the reason he's going out there. So, Brian, as we look at President Trump, who we assume, I believe Melania is with him there on Marine.
Yes.
Marine One. Yeah. So we're waiting for him to get off. He'll make the quick exit over to Air Force One, and that'll be that. We talked in the first hour about the seating chart, which I thought was interesting. It's the bishops and cardinals will be in that first row at the Pope's funeral. And then the second row is going to be non-Catholic royalty, which I actually think is kind of funny, the way they termed it, non-Catholic royalty. And then President Trump, apparently, according to Vatican protocol, will be in the third row, and they'll do it in alphabetical order, and Zelensky will be there. So the T and the Z aren't next to each other, but it'll be interesting to see kind of how that, just the side, not only the side conversations, but the visuals of, we remember the visuals of President Trump talking with former President Obama and others. That type of stuff will be very interesting to watch, too.
It will. It will be must-see TV tomorrow morning, and that I was not aware of that seating chart, David. You laid it out perfectly. I can kind of visualize everything, and I'm sure that the mainstream media will break this down like a John Madden football play. They'll have X's and O's and who sat where and who got up and who reached over. That's interesting. So I guess the body language, the facial gestures, if they do have a moment to see each other, that's going to be very interesting as well, to watch this play out at the Vatican on a day that we remember Pope Francis. And of course, the media attention to this is huge. The world will be watching. This is one of those moments in time where you can say, well, I know where I was at when Pope Francis' funeral. So it's going to be interesting. But like I said, he's not there very long. It's about 2 hours is slated on the president's schedule for this funeral. And then he's back to Bedminster Saturday night, early Sunday morning.
Some interesting things, Brian, I'm just looking at about Pope Francis's funeral that will be different from other popes' funerals, as he will be buried in a single, simple wooden coffin lined with zinc. I'm not sure the purpose of that. Rather than the traditional 3 coffins, I guess, that popes are ordinarily buried in, he'll be buried at a church outside of St. Peter's Basilica. And there are a few other things, too. It'll be very interesting. And some of this seating, by the way, was his request. It's not necessarily, David, at least according to what I'm reading here, not necessarily tradition, but more some of the things that he requested. And, of course, after the funeral, the College of Cardinals will begin to process what they're going to do in terms of electing the Pope, which ordinarily takes about 15 to 20 days. What else can you tell us, Brian?
Well, it's interesting. I saw a headline on CNN yesterday when I was in the briefing room, and it said, when we come back, we'll find out what the legacy will be for Pope Francis amongst the LGBTQ community. And I thought to myself, wow, okay, that's interesting that establish a legacy. But, as far as how this Pope will be remembered is very interesting. I mean, I know personal friends that have literally walked away from the Catholic Church due to some of the stances, not the Catholic Church that we have here. The Catholic Church we have here, from what I understand, has been very criticized by Pope Francis for being kind of so in lockstep with their faith. And it was really Pope Francis and the Vatican that have wandered off into left field and got into a lot of this wokeness that's happening now. So it's going to be interesting, the fallout stories from all of this. But at the end of the day, President Trump showed his respects, and of course he got criticized for that, Dr. Gina. If you remember, people said that's all he's going to say about the Pope. He opened up a few, maybe 60 seconds at the Easter ceremony, mentioned the death, and then of course the mainstream media lashed out at him for not saying enough about the Pope. I couldn't be more respectful for anyone with all faith, and I want to be respectful for the Pope, and honestly, our prayers are for people who are around him. But life goes on, and here in this country, we pray, we put God first in all aspects of our life, in our government, our personal lives, our policy, our president, and I think that's what we should stay focused on.
So, Brian, we just watched President Trump and the First Lady aboard Air Force One. They, of course, are going to move the stairs there away here in short order, and then Air Force One will take off on its way to Italy. It's funny, as I was watching the President and the First Lady climb those stairs, I was thinking to myself, oh, wow. Oh, what a difference an administration makes, not only in terms of policies, but we've got a president who can climb the stairs without tripping. And we just, again, witnessed that all together. I want to talk about something a bit more substantive, though. And it's, I guess, somewhat of an esoteric question, Brian. But how important is posture, both literally and figuratively, going to be tomorrow during the funeral? President Trump, of course, wants to establish himself, and he probably is established, but he wants to kind of solidify himself as the leader of the free world. And so I would imagine body language is going to be very important, not just from the president, but also from the other dignitaries who are going to be on hand.
Well, it's huge, the posturing there. I was just getting word that perhaps did President Trump talk to President Xi of China? I know that phone call just took place here recently. I don't know if that's made it to the wires yet, but that's showing leadership in the world. People know it's
Brian,
interesting.
I'm sorry, I've got to interrupt you, Brian. Just before boarding Marine Force One, President Trump apparently spoke, and we've got that for you now.
And Iran, I think, is going very well. We'll see what happens. We're working on plenty of things that shouldn't be worked on, because none of this stuff should have happened. This should have been taken place by Biden. It should have been fixed by Biden, but he couldn't do it, nor could he come close to doing it. So anyway, we're going to Rome to pay our respects, and we'll be leaving that same day. We'll be coming back home tomorrow night, and I'll see some of you over there. Otherwise, I'll see you on television.
Meeting this morning. You said you spoke with President Xi. Have you spoken to him since the tariffs? When did you last?
I don't want to comment on that, but I've spoken to him many times. Yeah. From Japan. From Japan, I'm getting along very well with Japan. We're very close to a deal.
Will you be meeting with the President?
I'll be meeting with the Italian. Yes. Your Prime Minister? Oh, it's possible.
How would you as First Lady remember Pope Francis, sir? How would you as First Lady?
Very well. Good man. He loved the world, actually, and he was just a good man. I met him twice. I thought he was a fantastic kind of a guy.
Time magazine that President Xi called you. When did that happen, and what did you discuss?
I'll let you know at the appropriate time. Let's see if we can make a deal.
The Witkoff meeting. Any updates on the Witkoff Putin meeting, sir? The meeting right now. What do you hope to transpire?
They're meeting with Putin right now as we speak. And we have a lot of things going on, and I think in the end we're going to end up with a lot of good deals, including tariff deals and trade deals. We're going to make our country rich, but we're going to try and get out of war so that we can save 5,000 people a week And that's what my aim is. I want to save 5,000 young men. They happen to be mostly Ukrainian, Russian. 5,000 young Ukrainian and Russian men, and that's a big honor if I could do it. I think we're pretty close. No deadline. I just want to do it as fast as possible. What?
12 states are sued over your tariff plan. What do you say to those who voted for you?
I think the tariff plan is doing very well. We're resetting the table. We're going to make our country very rich, very, very rich. It's already happening. Thank you very much.
All right, so let's bring back in Brian, David, and Dr. Gina. Brian, your reaction, you obviously just gave us the news that President Trump had already spoken to his Chinese counterpart, President Xi. We also just heard the president say that as we speak, his proxy, some of the folks in his administration are talking with Putin, and that he very well may speak with President Zelensky during his trip
just
Rome
to let you guys know, my IFB just cut out just now. I'll jump in there real quickly if I can, Terrance. Also, China backing away or backing down from the tariffs that they put on their semiconductors. That was one of the things that was discussed. That's breaking news that I just saw go across the line. So I'm going to jump back on IFB, though, because I've lost some sound from you guys. But not surprising that President Trump is leading the charge here in the tariff agreements and also in the war negotiations as well.
All right.
All right.
We'll let Brian get his IFB back up. Dr. Gina, David, your takeaways. David, let's start with you. He really addressed a number of issues in that short little speech before the reporters.
Well, he addressed them, but let's put an asterisk on that. He addressed them the way Donald Trump purposely addressed them. In other words, you keep all your options open and everything's on the table. I mean, he'll never commit to anything, especially in those gaggles like that. That's not what he does, Gina. He's a guy that's just like, look, we're doing deals. It's going to be fine. It's going to be great. Just watch. And that makes sense because you never want to commit. Part of the art of the deal, right? Never get tethered to one position. You got to have flexibility.
Yeah. And I also love the way he spitballs stuff to the American public. He's like, hey, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about that. And then he just waits to hear our opinion. And then he goes around to whomever he sees. If he's in Palm Beach this weekend, he will ask people, I'm sure. And I think he'll be coming back to Palm Beach, if I'm not mistaken, this weekend. And whoever he runs into will say, hey, what did you think about what I said before I left? What did you think about me going to the Pope? What did you think about the Pope? How are you feeling about this? Who do you think is going to be the next Pope? David, you know as well as I do, the whole time you're with him, he's interviewing you. Right? Amazing. And I know Brian knows this as well. Brian, are you back? There you are. You know this too.
Yeah,
like the president likes to ask you questions as much as you like to ask him questions.
He does. He's curious about what people think. I have a friend, and I'll just share a real quick story. A friend that was a driver in the Secret Service used to drive him around. They went to one of these shipbuilding plants, and they were driving around looking at ships, and President Trump was asking him, which ship do you like? Which one looks the most aggressive? Which one looks the most powerful? He wanted to know their personal opinion of everything. And being a builder, he goes and talks to people, gets their ideas, gets their opinions of what do they feel about this? How do they feel about that? What's the biggest problem you're facing? He is a leader, and that's what leaders do. Joe Biden didn't talk to anybody. He was calling a press lit at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, never talked to reporters, never talked to his staff, basically did not lead this country. President Trump is the exact opposite of all of that.
Yeah, Brian, we really appreciate it. Yeah, I've got stories. We all have stories, right? I mean, I remember President Trump calling me when he was running for office for the presidency here about a month before he got elected in the landslide. He called me and asked me a couple of questions about some policy issues, which I thought was interesting. I can't reveal any more because it was off the record, but it happens all the time for sure. Brian, great to have you with us. You're the best. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Let's go. Oh, well, we didn't mean to cut you off. We're not rude here. Well, some of us are. No. What am I talking about? All right. T. Bates in Denver for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
We are less than a minute away from the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. The applause is going to happen here in short order, and then the markets will open. I can tell you pre-market trading not looking so good. Oh, what a difference one day makes. Yesterday, all of the indices were in the green. Today, all three are in the red. Arbor Day Foundation is at the podium right now. You hear the applause, which means the bell is just moments away from ringing, and then we'll get an official look at the markets to see how they're faring on this Friday, this last day of official trading of the week. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The markets are officially open, and just like that, the entire board is red right now. The Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ all down, slightly down, but still in the red. Gold and silver, those precious metals that have been holding pretty steady for the last couple of weeks, are down as well. In fact, gold is down pretty significantly, more than a full percentage point, almost 2 percentage points, and crude oil is also in the red right now. We'll continue to monitor it throughout the day for you, though, and keep you updated. In the meantime, tariffs have really thrown the global economy into chaos. Potential widespread inflation tied to massive supply chain disruptions is weighing heavily on all of us. But there is a silver lining that most people missed. President Trump specifically exempted gold and silver bullion from those sweeping tariffs. While the new policies are triggering significant financial chaos, the administration preserved your ability to diversify into precious metals. And despite those precious metals being down right now, again, over the past several weeks, they had really been a pretty solid hedge against what's happening in the markets. If you're concerned about your savings, we really want to encourage you to have a free consultation with the folks over at the Birch Gold Group and their precious metals specialists. The first step is to text the word America to the number 989898 and to receive your free no-obligation information kit on gold. Learn how to hold gold and silver in a tax-sheltered account. The Birch Gold Group will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a gold IRA for no money out of pocket. So many Americans buy gold from the Birch Gold Group, so is it finally time that you do so as well? With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied customers, text the word America to the number 989898. Again, that's America. You can text that to the number 989898 and claim your free information kit. Still to come here on American Sunrise, Americans were extremely concerned about the nation's economy just a couple of weeks ago, but have those fears cooled down a little bit in President Trump's second term? We've got the details for you. Plus, a Democrat senator calls for Trump to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities. We'll have the details on that ahead. More American Sunrise coming your way in a couple of minutes.
welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. Thanks for joining us this morning, this Freedom Friday morning. We invite you to join the conversation on Getter and Rumble. It is time now to take the political pulse of America and the beat today. Americans are feeling better about the economy with President Donald Trump back in the Oval Office. A Fox News survey finds that 55% of voters feel the economy is getting worse for their family. That is a percentage down, though, from the 64% that it was in December. So joining us now, Jen Pellegrino. She is Senior Director of Media Affairs and Chief Spokesperson for America First Policy Institute. Welcome, Jen. Good to have you. 82% are very worried and concerned about inflation. This is down, though, from 89% in January. Still not great numbers, but getting better anyway. Trump approaches the 100th day in office of his second term. How good do you think this will be by day 200, Jen?
Oh, man. Hey, we're just getting started. Can you believe 100 days in, Dr. Gina? And you think about where we were for the last 4 years. And, you know, the polling does show Americans are feeling a lot better than they did during the dark days under Joe Biden. We look at all the work that's being done. And this is exactly what President Trump promised from the campaign trail. I mean, we've never seen such transparency with an administration unless you go back to the last Trump administration. And again, what he promised out there at all those rallies, all that campaigning was exactly what we're seeing take place right now. When you look at our border, that, you know, illegal crossings down over 95% year over year, both at our southern border and our northern border, where we also had issues. You look at the work that's being done to send education back to the states, the work of DOGE to eliminate waste and fraud. I mean, there's so much that, again, the American people wanted, and I think there's a lot of relief there. That being said, I think, you know, a lot of things are going to take time as well. And so you have the legacy media looking at the first 100 days saying, hey, you know, there's conflict here with tariffs, perhaps, but some of those things take time. And I think, you know, 200 days, you're going to be even better off than we are right now. So we're really on the right track under President Trump.
I'd like to bring your attention to this New York Post headline. It says Columbia vows to tear down tent encampments, have disruptors arrested as school braces for a renewed anti-Israel protest. Allegedly, around 100 people held a secret meeting about the encampment. Ringleaders tell the protesters, don't wear masks on campus. It would actually tip off campus security. This is just another example of how these Ivy League schools and so many universities across the country are continuing with this, I'm going to call it foolishness, my words, nobody else's, but that's ultimately what it comes down to, and President Trump is pushing back against it.
Terrance is exactly right. I mean, look at how they're saying they're going to tear these down now under the Biden administration. It continued on and on for weeks. And you think about those poor students who had to miss their graduations, who, you know, couldn't go to classes, who feared for their lives. I mean, you pay a fortune to go to a school like Columbia these days, to any college, really, and to have to deal with that, to fear for your life, to not be able to go to class. These are institutions where, you know, students should be going to learn. We shouldn't be dealing with protests of this nature. God bless President Trump for taking a stand against this. And I think it is because of that strength that you've seen from him that you're hearing from these universities saying, oh, we're going to tear this down. But they need to go a step further than this and say this is simply not going to be tolerated on campus. This is a place for learning, not for these protests that make any student feel unsafe, and a place where they should be getting an education.
Hey, Jen, let's show you this Washington Free Beacon headline. It has to do with Senator John Fetterman. Hoodie politics strikes again. He's telling Trump to dump Iran talks and destroy Tehran's nuclear facilities. He went on to say you're never going to be able to negotiate with that kind of regime. That's totally true. Fetterman doesn't believe attacking Iran would begin a regional war as well. That's what he said. Look, I mean, he gets an F in dress code, but when it comes to pro-Israel, I mean, it's been pretty A+.
Yeah, listen, he's come around in a lot of ways from the Fetterman we knew some time ago. But I think, you know, when you think about America First and the work that's being done, it really crosses party lines. It's something that I think a lot of people can get behind. And you look at, you know, what Fetterman has said here, I think probably a lot of Americans do feel that way. But you consider how the media is kind of spinning President Trump's approach and saying, oh, this is similar to Obama and Biden. It's really not. That's the media. President Trump doesn't want to get us into any unnecessary unnecessary wars. He's going to exhaust all options before you look at military force. That's the goal here. Obviously, it's very difficult to negotiate with a regime like this, but nobody else can do this like President Trump can. We've seen this in the past during the last administration, the work that he did, and I'm confident that going forward, he will come up with a plan here and be able to work this out. Ideally, not getting to a place where we have to use force, but he obviously wants to exhaust all those options before going in that direction.
Jen, I pay a lot of attention to our chat as we're in the middle of the show and throughout the show and even throughout the day sometimes. And one of the greatest frustrations I hear among this audience is that President Trump's EOs, as great as they are, just simply aren't being codified. What is your take on that? When do you think it will happen? Will it happen? What percentage? And what are you really hearing from leadership who should be making this happen?
Dr. G, I'm hearing the same frustrations here in Washington among the people that I, engage in circles with, people in our space in the America First world. That is so important. Again, there's so much great work being done from the Oval Office. All of these EOs, so many of them, especially as you look at the first 100 days, how much has been done. But again, all of this can be overturned in another administration. Ideally, we have America First around for the next 100 years. That's the America First Policy Institute is working toward every single day. But we can't lose sight of the prize here and the target, and we are always under attack. The midterms will be here before we know it, and 2028 will be here before we know it. So, listen, I'm with you. A lot of work needs to be done to codify this, and we'll see how this plays out.
Well, good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Jen, as we move. Yeah, go ahead, Terrance. Good. Do you have something?
No, go ahead, David. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Jen. We're just going to fight over here in a moment. Just, if you don't mind.
Please do. I love it.
Just give us a moment to work out our issues here on the show. Just kidding. All right.
We need a little more coffee this morning. It's still early.
That's right.
Mine is way too empty, Jen. Way too empty.
I love
unfortunately.
Curious about what you guys are doing over there at your. It's such an important organization, and dare I call it what do I want to? I want to be careful how I say this, but it's basically kind of like a training ground to a degree, if you will, for some of the White House positions that have come in, Brooke Rollins, and you just go down the list. I mean, there's so many people that come from your organization over there. What has it been like for you guys over there in terms of just seeing the success that you guys have had with folks being hired in the administration and the policies being enacted?
Well, David, thank you for the kind words. We're so proud of this success. And again, we credit President Trump for his leadership and all the work that he's done. We're merely here supporting him in driving policy, building policy, handing that over and letting his administration do the work. We look at, as you mentioned, Linda McMahon, Brooke Rollins, Pam Bondi, so many from our organization that have gone into the administration because we are of the America First movement. President Trump has driven that. And obviously we've seen a lot of our folks go into the administration, but we're building back up within the organization here, bringing more great people in, more like-minded folks that are aligned with the America First movement. And again, as I said earlier, we want to drive this for the next 100 years. Some people look at AFPI and say, okay, well, mission accomplished. They can step aside. They achieved what they wanted. Well, we do have a great president in office who aligns with our vision, but we want to keep this movement going strong for decades to come. And that's our mission right now, is keeping that going, looking at the policies that are in place right now. What can we do to improve going forward? So we've got a great team at AFPI. We're really excited about what's to come. And we're just so proud as we look at 100 days right now. President Trump going to be having a rally, I understand, in Michigan on Tuesday to celebrate that. And we're just so thrilled because, you think back to November and, the concern, what could this country be like if the election had gone the other way? And we're in such a wonderful place. We're very blessed to have President Trump in office, and we're glad to be able to support him at the America First Policy Institute.
So in terms of policy advocacy, particularly there at AFPI, what are some of the primary issues that you guys are pushing, some of the primary issues that you're hoping will really take hold during the Trump administration?
You know, we're looking at everything from the border, obviously being massive, education, foreign policy, the economy. I mean, all of the issues that you hear President Trump speak about on a regular basis. We have centers, campaigns. We're working toward driving action on our C4 side throughout the states. We have state chapters that are getting involved to make sure that some of President Trump's actions are also going further on the state level. So, you know, we're looking really at a lot of things right now, border again being a huge one, and we're so thrilled with the success that we've seen. President Trump has stood strong as you look at some of these criminals that have come into this country and the opposition, which is just unfathomable to deporting some of these individuals. So we support all of these actions. We're going to continue to do that, and then also look forward to, you know, again, we have a lot of opposition right now. There's a lot of lawsuits going on trying to stop the great work that's being done by this administration. And of course, we want to ensure that all of that continues so this country can really move into that golden age that President Trump has promised.
Jen Pellegrino, she's not only an excellent spokesperson, she also gives you great shoe tips if you ever need them, guys. Like,
oh, good. I do need.
How you can, what shoes you should wear for really long days, things like that. She knows it all. I'm telling you.
Oh yeah. I remember that. We did have this conversation. I know it's you really have to be prepared out there, Dr. G. I got to tell you, remember my first Trump rally, Phoenix, Arizona, I think it was 2020. I had some great shoes on, but my feet were killing me later that day. So you got to have like the cute sneakers for doing those long day events. But yeah, I'm always glad to talk shoes.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Jen Pellegrino, thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Be right back.
Let's spill some tea.
Let's Spill Some Tea is sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. ArtilleryTCO.com is the website. Use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off of your first order. Artillery Tea is all natural. It's whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. ArtilleryTCO.com. Again, use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off of your first order. All right, let's get right into what's in the cup today, and that would be Mike Britton, the co-founder of Artillery Tea Company, joining us today. Mike, always good to talk to you. So let's talk about this limited release that you guys have today.
Yeah, we're doing something new today. We have a lot of customer base that does enjoy the sachets that we have, the tea bags that are free of harsh chemicals, pesticides, bleached paper, ECH, things like that are in traditional tea bags, right? But a lot of them still do loose leaf. And today we're doing a limited release of our most popular blends, the Morning Moab, the black tea, and the Gadsden Green Peach Apricot Green Tea. Both are made with all organic ingredients, but for a limited time, we'll have these loose leaf pouches. We only have a certain number of units. We don't plan on restocking, and I wanted the folks here at RAV to be the first ones to know about it. So that's what we're announcing today.
All right, folks, that means get on the website right now. Go ahead and place your order because there's only a limited amount. So hopefully by the time we end the segment, you'll have sold out, even though that's probably not fair to anyone who's not watching RAV, but they should have been watching RAV. So there you have it. Talk about the idea for the limited release. What was the idea behind it?
We actually ran a customer survey, believe it or not. And so we had a lot of people respond saying that they wanted loose leaf as an option because they do both sachets and the loose leaf. So with loose leaf, you have more options, right? You can make the tea stronger. You put more leaves in there. You can make it a little bit weaker if what we have in the sachets, like pre-packaged, is too much. There's a lot of wiggle room with the flavors that you can play with there. And so we actually put 2 ounces in each bag of these loose leaf pouches. Usually you get 1 ounce with our existing tins and our reload pouches. So you get twice the amount. It makes about 60 cups worth of tea for the price. You can still brew each little batch. You can still brew those twice because it's still the whole leaves. It's still the premium quality, top graded leaves.
Okay. One of the things about your tea is kind of where it's sourced from. And it's not just that the tea bags themselves are healthier, but the tea that you're offering is a higher quality than what you'd get from most companies.
Yeah, most companies do. They actually sell the byproduct of producing the stuff that we use. So we use the top graded whole leaves. When they produce those whole leaves, like dust falls off. That's actually what the lowest graded tea is called. It's called tea dust. And so they actually put that tea dust that comes off of our top graded leaves and they put it into those tea bags that have, bleach paper, glue, plastic, microplastics, all kinds of stuff in it. So you're not only getting a tea bag that's laden with harsh chemicals, you're also getting the lowest grade of tea available. And if that's the only tea that you drink, I would challenge you to say, I'm not sure you've ever tasted what natural tea tastes like. And so when you buy our stuff, you get the actual leaf from the plant that's been dried out and either roasted. There's a bunch of different processing means to get it to be black tea or green tea or oolong or whatever it is.
All right, Mike, always good to talk to you, my friend. Looking forward to the special. And it seems to me that this special is a great way for people who may not have had the sort of high quality tea that you're having to kind of dip their toe in it without fully committing deeply, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. We still have that America's Tea. If you've never placed an order, you can use that for your 25% off your first order. That'll still work on these loose leaf pouches.
All right, good stuff. Mike Britton, always good to see you, my friend. Have a great rest of the weekend.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your sunny side up of the day.
Vatican City. Hey, get ready. President Trump's on the way. He'll be there in 9 hours. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. Thanks so much for joining us today. All right, so Senate Democrats are targeting President Donald Trump's nominee for a top prosecutor's position in D.C. Guy's name is Edward Martin. He's in the spotlight now for championing January 6 defendants, and that's driving Democrats, quote, nutso. I just made the quote myself. Martin serves as a defense attorney in U.S. Capitol protest cases. Let's go ahead and talk to Donna Fiducia about this because we need some logic, and this is Cowboy Logic straight up. Hey, Donna, of course, you are the host, as we know, Cowboy Logic here on RAV. So Senator Adam Schiff says he's going to place a hold on Martin's confirmation. You've got Democrat Senator Dick Durbin apparently pressing the Republicans to hold confirmation hearings about this guy, and they never hold confirmation hearings on stuff like this. No. So what's your take?
Not for this. This is at Eagle Ed Martin is what he is on X. Follow him if you can. But he obviously is a pit bull, and Adam Schiff. And I mean, this is like, really? That's rich for Adam Schiff to have problems with Ed Martin. But that's because Adam Schiff has problems, period. Adam Schiff has a house in Maryland, remember this. So you either falsely registered in California to run for office because you're supposed to have your main residence in that state, or he committed mortgage fraud. This is the huge problem. We're going to be looking at this actually on Cowboy Logic, not this weekend show, but the week after, giving it a whole hour. And remember that Adam Schiff also conspired with then CIA Director John Brennan to overthrow Trump back in 2016. He went after, obviously, George Papadopoulos and General Flynn, the Russia hoax. There's a lot of skeletons in the closet with Shifty Shift and Dick Durbin as well. There's a reason probably Dick Durbin isn't running either, but this is huge, and this really all goes back to just the huge amount of money. They're saying as much as $4 trillion now embedded with John Podesta, the Center for American Progress, running all of this against Donald Trump in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah,
I think that's all going to come out in future weeks.
It's interesting, Donna. I've known Ed Martin, I think, my whole entire life. I'm from St. Louis, where he's from. He and I both were mentored by the late, amazing Phyllis Schlafly. That's a name everybody should know. So Ed and I came up in her school of politics, and that's how we both became conservatives. I actually put in a good word for Ed when he wanted this position with the administration. And it doesn't surprise me. He's adamantly, ardently pro-life. And that's the real issue, certainly with Democrats. It has nothing to do with any sort of moral high ground, as they might ascertain. But anyway, Donna, what's coming up on the Barn Party this weekend?
Well, we have Gregory Wrightstone. He's Al Gore's worst nightmare. He wrote that book, An Inconvenient Fact. CO2 actually is a good thing. And former DEA Mark Ibrahim, he got fired after he attended the J6 event. And his brother, who was an active FBI guy at the time, is still in the FBI. So there's a little bit of problem there. We also have Peter Schwartz, who was a Jan 6er, his story. You know, the Jan 6ers, they're out of prison, which is awesome. But unfortunately, the problem still persists. They've had their lives ruined, and it's so hard for all of them to get back into society.
I'm so glad you said that, Donna, because I think about them and pray about them all the time. Just because they're out doesn't mean that their problems have gone away. Many of them were stripped of their livelihoods, their families, some of them their lives. That we need to never stop praying for them. Donna, thank you so much for that. And we want to say hello because it's Puppy Friday for Colby.
Hello.
And he says hello and sends his kisses to all of you.
Puppy Bannon is 60 pounds now. I can't put him up here.
You can't lift him up. Yeah. No. Well, I'll tell you what. Colby, he went to his veterinary appointment this last week, and they said he was he's a little plump, Donna. He's a little plump.
Oh.
But that's okay
Needs
though.
More exercise. Bring him to the farm, Gina. We'll lose those pounds.
Yeah, he does just kind of lay here on the sofa beside me all day. Anyway, you guys, great show today. Thanks for joining us. Have a fantastic weekend. We have so much more for you every morning. It'll start again on Monday. We will see you then. We have, of course, War Room up next. You all hug your children, love your God. You go boldly. Oh, kiss your puppies. Live the truth.
Oh.
God.